live, and
you're going that way, but I got a
what an
room full of people
election
over
night.
here who are
This
still
is the
inside
beginning
the building.
of
So
the blue
trying
wave.
to find that balance
We've
is a
got
very
winners in the
difficult
Democratic
thing
Party
for the leader to do.
across
So that's why it
the
comes
board.
across like, why can't you just
Goes
do
to
the
show
obvious?
you
Because the
everything
obvious
that Donald
is
Trump
not that obvious,
touches.
and it's
Donald
not
Trump,
that easy.
Donald Trump
And
touches
so that
dies.
part of it, I think, is important.
Oh, and the movement
to
is
understand it and to contextualize,
dying.
because everybody's going to want to beat
All right,
up
so we've got
Chuck
MSNBC
Schumer,
on.
and everyone's
We've got
gonna,
CNN
try
on.
to put a face on the
I'm
Republican
looking
or
forward
the
to
Democratic Party, which
checking in
Republicans,
on
to
Fox
Nicole's
News
point,
and
is
watching
absolutely-
the
they're already
cope
doing it tonight, by the
over
way.
there.
All right, right
We're
now,
waiting for
Mamdani
Mamdani
might as well be
to
the
give his acceptance
president of the
speech.
Democratic Party,
We,
right? That's the way
I think
this
we're
is
still
going to
waiting
get
for Mikey
framed.
Sherrill. I'm just logging on,
How the
so
Democrats respond
we will
to that
see.
is important.
And
can't
then we've
stumble over the
also
point that
we're also
Lawrence just
waiting
made.
on
They can't
news
get caught
from
up
California.
in the politics of being the
Michelle
minority
Maibel,
leader
yes,
in the
yes,
Senate.
yes. Let's
Because
go.
He's not looking out for
Okay, let
one
me see here.
mayor in a city. He's got to look
just
out
loading
for 50,
in, just logging
trying
in.
to get 50 senators.
Let's see.
I would just say I disagree, and I haven't been
Where's my
convinced.
chat box at?
And I've been in
Chat
Washington
box
for a
should
long
be good.
time, and I understand what the minority leader does. I think it's missing the boat on where the
chat. Let's
party
go
and where the
multi-stream
energy
live
is headed,
chat.
and it's not without drawbacks. But it's missing a lot
There we
of
go. I
where
think the multi-stream will
fundraising
get
can come from, and where
everybody's-
energy can come from, and where
everybody's comments
candidates
in.
can come from.
All right, let's listen
by not
into
engaging
MSNBC's
here. Even I understand
analysts
the
talk about
weighing
tonight.
it, but I think it's missing the boat.
Well, and we'll see how it shakes out. I will say, in terms of other Democratic Party leaders, we have a couple of statements. Barack Obama says, "Congratulations to all the Democratic candidates who won tonight. It's a reminder that when we come together around strong, forward-looking leaders who care about the issues that matter, we can win. We've still got plenty of work to do, but the future looks a little bit brighter." Hillary Clinton tonight. Democratic women made history tonight. Abigail Spanberger will be the first female governor of Virginia. Mikey Sherrill will be the first female Democratic governor of New Jersey. I'm looking forward to seeing these strong, dedicated leaders deliver for their states.
Oh, I bet
We are
Hillary
expecting
Clinton
to
is
hear
loving
from
this.
Zohran Mamdani in terms of his acceptance speech, his victory speech, very shortly. Lawrence has put in a special plea that we can try to find Andrew Cuomo's concession speech, even if we have to find it muttering on a bus stop on a corner.
I'll run it tomorrow night if
we
it's
can
any
find
good. The chances of it being good aren't very high, okay? It could be bitter and angry and terrible, or it could be something great.
Well, bitter and angry and terrible can
tease, though.
can sometimes be good
Tomorrow
to
at
hear.
10, it might be bitter.
Rachel, on those congratulations, did they specifically not mention Mayor of New York?
9:54 p.m. and 9:46 p.m. So these statements went out essentially right when he was
But
being
a
named.
footnote that might interest us, since we're political nerds, to Lawrence's point, Barack Obama never endorsed.
No,
He did endorse in the LA mayor's race. He did not endorse Zohran Mamdani.
Yeah.
But he did something that shrewd politicians do, which is made a point of saying some nice things through the telephone, which somehow ended up in the New York Times the same day as the telephone call. There is some middle ground to say something is happening here, but not necessarily endorsing all of it. That's what politics
Every
is.
Democrat who is afraid of Mamdani is going to regret it. That's
Can
all
I
I'm
go
saying.
back?
No, we have to take a break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna get the speech.
California.
If we don't go to, and we're gonna get California. We've still got polls open in California.
Well, yeah, okay, so before they go to break, I mean, I like the point that Ari's making there. I would say that, you know, they probably didn't think it was going to be as big of a blowout as it was. And so it would make sense that President Obama is like, look, they have used my name to fuel anti-democratic sentiment so much over the past 20 years that I'm not going to give them any more fuel for that fire. Okay, let's check in on CNN. We got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on CNN.
We don't have to be afraid of the future, and we don't have to be afraid of our young.
What do you think it also says that the Democratic Party across the board tonight in all of these major races in Virginia, in New Jersey, down ballot, up ballot, had these victories? I mean, is there room in the Democratic Party for both moderates like Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger and also Zohran Mamdani?
Well, I think it's not just a message about Democrats. It's a message about our entire country. I think that Americans are appalled by what they are seeing coming out of this administration. They are appalled by the cowardice of Congress, by these Republican majorities in the House and in the Senate. I think that they see Donald Trump now for who he is, which is a handmaiden to billionaires and a handmaiden to corporate interests that are making working class life impossible in America. And I think that they want to send fighters in every single pocket of this country to fight for working people, to make life affordable and safe for all.
When Trump promised, as he has in recent days, that he will give only the bare minimum to New York as a result of this election, what do you say to that?
I think he should be careful about the threats that he issues and what cities he threatens, because New York City is not a city, as we see from this electorate. These are not people, and our people are not people who easily back down, who take well to threats, and I just don't think that Americans take well to leaders who try to coerce them through hostile messaging. I think they want public servants who work for them and not against them. And I think that the results that we've seen in Georgia, in Virginia, in New Jersey, and in New York City demonstrate that.
What should Democrats do going forward? Because there is a lot of data now, both what happened tonight, but also some polling that shows a deep dissatisfaction with the Trump administration. The government is still shut down as we speak. What's the next step?
Well, as we know, Mike Johnson has refused to call the House of Representatives back into session. It's been about a month now, and we have federal workers that have been laid off. We have federal workers that are not taking paychecks. We have SNAP recipients that this administration has essentially indicated, and this president has indicated, that he is willing to starve them in order to coerce them into supporting him. And this is a very grave and dangerous moment.
So you think that the party should continue to hold out? No negotiations?
I mean, I think this Republican leadership refuses to even seriously engage in any sort of negotiation or attempt to reopen the government. I think that Democrats stand at the ready to do so, but the Republican majority simply isn't even calling on Hakeem Jeffries or in any of the Democratic Party for a serious negotiation to make this happen.
So the Senate Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, did not endorse in this race. He did not endorse Mamdani and wouldn't say how he voted. What's your response to that?
Well, what I think is so impressive about what Zohran Mamdani accomplished tonight, as well as the entire movement of New Yorkers that came out to vote for him, is that he had to not just defeat a Republican, he had to defeat a Republican and the old guard of the Democratic Party at the same time. He was fighting a war on two fronts and not just one. And he still won resoundingly. And I think the message that that sends is that the Democratic Party cannot last much longer by denying the future, by trying to undercut our young, by trying to undercut a next generation of diverse and upcoming Democrats that have the parties, the actual party, our actual electorate and voters support.
All right, we have to go, but I have to ask you, because Republicans are saying that Chuck Schumer is afraid of you. Is he?
I don't think so. I think that, Senator Schumer and I have worked together. I think Republicans are afraid of me. I'll tell you that much. And I think that they project their fear of me onto him. So I think that they're just telling on themselves when they say that.
All right, Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining us. Back to you, Jake, in Washington.
She's so good.
Actually, I'll take it. We're standing by to hear from New York City's mayor-elect, Democrat Zohran Mamdani. After his big win, Democrats already celebrating tonight, but can they keep their momentum in the weeks and months ahead? All eyes now on California and Governor Gavin Newsom's redistricting proposition. We're watching long lines outside polling places there with just minutes left until the polls close.
All right. See, this is great because we just get to jump back and forth.
At 8 o'clock here.
Okay, so he's actually in Sacramento, California, right? And he is at a polling center that is right across the street from Gavin Newsom's office, so that he can just jump right over to Gavin Newsom when he
here in
gives
California, you're watching what's happening across the country.
Yes,
a
I've
speech,
lived there and I have
which
business
may or may
there,
not
so.
be from.
So what's it like for you to be in line tonight?
his
Just Prop
office,
50's on the
they may
ballot
have
here.
like
Who's
a
this, by the
room
way?
or something
My
set up.
little Luna.
for a
Now,
press
both my
conference.
daughters have been on TV. My older one's always on, but this is Luna, and I'm very proud to be from Sacramento, or Sacramento proud. I'm not from Sac, I'm from Mexico, but yeah,
But you're here and you're voting for Prop 50 tonight.
absolutely.
All right, it's nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Bye, Luna.
Lenny.
It's nice to meet you. So, Rachel, I mean, you can see it. I don't even know if I'll be able to make it there, and in any due time. But this line stretches on and on and on. Hi, how are you? Everybody doing good? Everybody doing good? They were passing out pizza before, Rachel. People are so hungry they've eaten all the pizza since we've been waiting to say hello. But these folks are all going to get in. I saw you a little while ago. How you doing? You doing okay?
Yeah,
You
good.
feeling good? Say hi to Rachel Maddow. She's here right now.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, everybody wants to say hi. Guys, so Rachel, everybody's in line. Everybody's feeling good. It's a big night for Democrats on the other side of the country, and we're going to wait and see what happens here in California. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go inside. But, Rachel, I'll throw it back to you.
Jacob, let me just ask you, you've been there a long time, and these folks have been there a long time. Is it high spirits generally? Have things been ebbing and flowing? Are people frustrated? Or it's all been pretty positive?
No, I think people feel really good. Anybody frustrated with the length of time it's taking you to get inside? Or are you happy to be here online tonight? No bathrooms, they say. Bathrooms is always the number
Californians,
one
man.
thing, Rachel. No bathrooms is the
We're
number
like,
one
you
thing. But
know,
there's
we'll
there
deal with
are
it.
a limited amount of people
It's
checking
like
people in.
65 degrees
there are a limited amount
outside,
of voting machines
60
here tonight. I
degrees.
think,
It's
in
a
truth,
beautiful
maybe
night
people didn't expect the turnout to be
in
this high
California.
for a
You can
state where there's a
see
lot
there's
of
a
mail-in
guy
voting, but people,
standing back behind him
are
with
here,
like a
and they showed
T-shirt
up,
on.
And at the last
People are
minute, people want to
chilling.
make their voices heard. You're
I'm in
shaking your head yes.
California, so
you're shaking your head yes.
you know,
Why,
we're pretty chill people.
Native representation. She wants to say what's up. What's your name?
My name's Alejandra Ramirez. I am the co-chairwoman of the Pacanyani Strawberry Valley Band of Maidu's, and I'm here voting, asserting our rights to do that. For so long in history, we were recognized as the last people. This is our land. We are the first people here. And so
You're making your voice heard, and you're here to make your voice heard tonight.
I sure am.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
All of us.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Everybody's
sweet
out here for a
moment.
reason, Rachel. Everybody's out here to protect democracy. They're clapping in line. I've never been in a line where people just spontaneously clapping. So thank you guys for having us tonight. Rachel?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
dude, Californians,
Fantastic.
man.
Let's go
Californians,
over to Torrance,
super
California.
diverse,
Our David
super
Noriega
chill,
is standing
super
by
awesome.
there. We've been looking at those shots,
That's
the
California
live
for you.
shots of that line in Torrance. Right now, again, in California, if you are online, even if your line is going to keep you outside your polling place until after the time when polling places technically are supposed to close. If you are online, you will be able to vote. We've got about another 20 minutes for polls to still be open in California. David, tell us what you're seeing in Torrance and what the line looks like there. It looks like it's been a pretty long line all night.
Yeah, Rachel, it has been a long line, not just all night, but all day. I've been really surprised. We went to 2 polling places in Torrance today, and I've been really surprised by the turnout in both of them. Substantial lines really all day long, way more than I expected. I just want to show you a little bit, as much as we can see in the light here. This line...
Yeah, so
this is
more
a
line
polling place.
coverage.
The
Now,
line
I
kind of
will say
snakes around.
that we as Californians, we got mail-in ballots like weeks ago. And so that's how I voted. Super easy, right? It comes with an envelope. You lick that bad boy, you sign it, you put your name on it, you stick it in your mailbox. That's it. That's all you got to do. So to see lines like this is really, really, really incredible. Let's check in with I want to check in with Fox News to watch the cope going on over there. Let's see what they're talking
Been a
about.
scandal, or they didn't like something about him. It's because of the issues, and those issues are now dividing the party, and they have to figure out how to bridge that.
All right, stand by.
We're going to have more with the panel coming up, but up next, we'll head west, where California voters are currently deciding a critical ballot referendum that could have major national impact.
Yeah. Show Fox News. Show the inside of the voting rooms so that you don't have to see the outside and see all of the people lined up to cast their vote. Okay, looks like CNN's got some coverage for us.
Victory speech after his big win in New York City. We'll obviously bring that to you right away. CNN's anchor Alex Michelson is with us tonight in Sacramento. What are you hearing tonight?
Well, Anderson, we are not seeing a big party here like what you're seeing in New York City. Governor Newsom is very suspicious, or I should say superstitious, about election nights. So what we see, the setup behind us, is the exact same setup that he did when he was facing a potential recall back in 2021, which essentially come out here, make a statement to the press, walk away, don't have a big party. And in 2021, that worked well. So he brought back the entire band. Basically, the campaign team is back, and they were able to put together a very fast campaign, just 59 days. They created the largest field operation for a non-presidential election ever in California, reaching millions of people. Their main message was basically, this is a way to send a message that you don't like Donald Trump. The folks on the no side are trying to make it about California issues, make it about the issue of redistricting itself. We'll see which one prevails. Newsom team feeling pretty confident tonight, Anderson.
Smart.
All right, Alex, thanks very much. We're going to run a miracle at a polling place in Santa Ana. Veronica, it looks like there's still people waiting.
All right, CNN, get it together.
There are a ton of people. Actually, Anderson, I want to show you the full length of this line. Well, this line
So
actually goes
Santa
all
Ana
the way wraps
is
around
a
the building
Hispanic,
to get inside.
a heavily Hispanic populated area in Orange County. I went to school at UC Irvine, which is
all the way
right
to
next
the end
to
of the
Santa
street.
Ana.
And I just spoke with election officials who tell me that this is incredibly atypical for a special election. They can see that there's a lot of interest around Proposition 50, as Alex was just talking about. This is the only measure on this ballot. And tonight we've spoken to many first-time voters, young voters, people who are 18 to 21 who either couldn't or didn't vote in the last presidential election, but said that they needed to come out today to vote. And I also spoke to a 54-year-old who was a first-time voter who said he just wasn't drawn to vote in any of the past elections except for this one. Many people saying the state of the country and immigration policies, Trump administration immigration policies, how that's impacting California and all of the chaos that it has brought to this area as one of the key reasons why they're out here to vote on Proposition 50. Anderson?
All right, Veronica Miracle, thanks very much. I want to go see CNN's David Chalian on how Democrats have done with young male voters tonight. David, what do you see in the numbers?
Yeah, Anderson, this is one of those key demographic groups, young men, aged 18 to 29, where we saw Donald Trump a year ago make big progress nationally. He actually won them by 1 point against Kamala Harris. Take a look at young men tonight. In Virginia, Spamberger wins them 57% to 43%. They're not a huge share of the electorate, they're 7%, but still significant to look at this. Take a look in New Jersey. 5% of the electorate are young men. Sherrill wins them by 10 percentage points, 54% to Chitterelli's 44%. And in New York City, where they also make up 5% of the electorate, Mamdani wins young men 64% to Cuomo's 23%
Yeah,
to
no
Sliwa's
surprise there.
9%. Now,
No
a year ago,
surprise there.
Donald Trump nationally made real gains with this group. Democrats, perhaps tonight, are starting to make a little bit of progress winning back some of these votes.
Yeah,
All right,
and you know why that is, right? You know why that is? It's because Trump made it easy for these like right-wing trolls, these like Joe Rogans, the Theo Vaughns, these podcasters. They made it easy to just say, those Democrats are just weak, right? Kamala's weak. You've got to vote for the strong man Donald Trump who survived the assassination attempt. But then they have spent the past, how long has it been? 10 months now? Watching videos of their communities being destroyed by ICE agents. They've heard stories of, like, young Hispanic men have heard stories of their friends' parents being taken. In Virginia, we had a lot of political analysts talking about how Donald Trump has launched a war on federal workers. And in Virginia, there is thousands of federal workers, a lot of young men in Virginia. So across the board, Donald Trump has stepped on the toes of young men. And when you get into a special election like this, then it's not so easy for Joe Rogan to get in the weeds of the politics, right? Not so easy for Theo Vaughn to get in the weeds. Not so easy for these right-wing trolls online to try to convince young men that it's just, Kamala bad, Donald Trump good. Not so easy. And so when you keep those kind of trolls away from our politics, you start to see that a reasonable electorate comes out to play. Let's check on... Okay, Fox is back. I really want to watch some Fox News.
Prop 50 and may be able to move 4 or 5 seats. There seems to be more firepower in the Republican states that are moving seats.
Look at the diversity of this panel. You've got the 3 blonde women, the 2 white men, and then I believe that gentleman on the left is black, but look at how whitened out the lighting is on this panel. He looks white. I mean, yeah, that's the diversity of the Republican Party and Fox News.
And then you have the U.S. Supreme Court that may make a decision on the Voting Rights Act that could move 19 seats.
That's actually the bigger possibility for Republicans if they succeed in those arguments at the Supreme Court. They've already heard arguments, so now we wait for this decision. If they make a major modification to the way that states can and can't district under the Voting Rights Act, Republicans know that that could be a big boon for them. Because what happens in California, if it does pass there, is just going to be a wash with what happened in Texas. There are limits on how many states can do these things, but now we wait on the justices, and they're on their clock. They're not on our clock. They know that there are elections out there and the midterms are coming, but we wait that decision on
With
Voting Rights Act.
such a slim majority, I mean, you're talking control of the House.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see what happens in California, and we'll see what happens with the Voting Rights Act. Just coming back to New York for a minute, because we're waiting for the arrival of Mamdani. It is interesting, Dana, and from a communications perspective, should he come out, or is he going to miss his window when people are up and paying attention to the new mayor?
I can't
It's
do
more
it.
about earlier tonight.
I'll check in
what
from time
Newsom's
to
doing is
time.
within
but
the rules,
my goodness,
taking it back to the voters and say, we're going to foul back and forth
and being
within the rules.
transparent about it, and people can understand it. And what David Noriega was saying about how people viscerally and instinctually and fully get it, there is no confusion about what is going on here, why it is happening, or what the implications of this vote will be. Just a reminder that voters are adults. By definition, voters are adults and can absorb a level of complexity that I think politicians and political parties and political consultants underestimate to their peril. We are going to have to take a quick break. We're going to come back because we think that we're going to get Zoran.
CNN.
York, you may want to assign
How many times have they taken a break and go,
but
oh, yeah,
I think
Zoran
that
Mamdani's gonna
every
run
candidate out there is
It
going to run
is-
on their own.
It's going to be 11 o'clock in New York, so
some of
yeah,
these
he should
candidates are
definitely be coming out
anti-fragile.
pretty soon.
The more that people beat up on
Jeanette
Donald Trump,
Hankins,
the bigger and stronger he
thank you for
got.
following over
The
on Facebook. Frank
dogpiling of
Osama, thanks for following.
Mamdani,
Tom
of
Way,
Zoran
thanks for following.
actually made
Montana
him
Jenny,
stronger. There was
thanks for
a bunch
subscribing.
of oligarchs put a bunch of money against him.
Awesome,
that
awesome.
actually
Welcome to Reflect
made
Politics,
people,
guys.
Rally more to his cause. How do
Thank you
see
all
it?
for liking the stream.
I wonder how
and
Mamdani would
be
have
sure to
done
hit that
against better
subscribe button
opposition.
if
Well, that's
you
I mean,
have
let's
not
be
done
honest.
so already. If you're brand new.
Cuomo, it can now be said, even though Trump was for him or whatever, this guy's terrible. He was terrible. He was terrible at the end of his
Well,
term.
this is just a pause. Trump
He's
said
awful.
that before, and he said it
honestly.
about Trump.
And
which is part of what makes people
And
cynical
he didn't
about
do,
him.
he needed some Republican votes. Sliwa did burn off a few of those, but he didn't do anything to talk to Republicans. He got Trump at the last, but Mamdani got to run against him twice.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I wonder how he would have done against more legitimate opposition on the part about the young voters. I agree with you. I wouldn't write off their concerns. I just would ask, what's Mamdani going to do for him? He's fixing to run a bunch of businesses out of this city. People who create jobs are going to be run out of the city. The kinds of jobs that they might need or they might want, those business people are probably going to go elsewhere now if he implements some of the programming that he has talked about, and things will get even more bleak. Things do not get better under socialism.
It's so
They-
old.
Populists always point to
Businesses
the
are
right
gonna
problem.
leave.
Sometimes they don't have the right solution.
Please,
And
dude.
so that's the question. But I'm going to tell you, if the establishment in both
New York
parties
City, man.
does not deal with the economic pain of this generation, you're going to see more of these type of candidates, for better or for worse.
Any minute now, Democrat New York City Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani is about to speak, and we're just minutes away from polls closing in California, as well as voters are still casting ballots on whether to accept those newly drawn U.S. House maps. We'll be right back.
Oh, no. I think we're forced to watch. Okay,
They're all
everybody's
heroes,
on break.
but only one can be
Everybody's
this
on
year's
break. Let's check out
CNN
the New York
Hero of the
Times
Year.
and see
Visit
what,
cnn.com/heroes to meet the honor.
See what they've got for us when it comes to. Let's see if they've got any new results. We've got. Let's see here. It's 7:52. Polls are closing pretty soon. I think that's what Anderson Cooper said. Yeah, the Mamdani victory, his lead is just growing. It's almost up to 200,000 now. Is at 180, it looks like. Oh, he's just blowing him out of the water. Not even close. Oh, let's check out the Twitter feed, huh? Oh, am I not signed in? Whatever. Do that later. Actually, I can just take it. Okay, Twitter's not going to work. Let's see if Blue Sky has. Blue Sky's up and running. Yeah, let's see. I logged out of all my stuff for the live stream. And now, yeah, here we go. Okay, it looks like we've got Como.
Congratulations to Zoran Mandami. No. That is not right. That is not right, and that is not us. That is not us. Tonight was their night, and as they start to transition to government, we will all help any way we can because we need our New York City government to work. We want it to work for all New Yorkers because our city is the greatest city in the world, and we will unite for New York City because we love New York City.
Yeah. Decent. Not too bad. I mean, I know that his campaign was pretty ridiculous. And that people were just trashing Mamdani, posting images of like the Twin Towers on 9/11. I mean, just really atrocious stuff. Process. All right, let's go back to let's see who's logged in here. MSNBC. It looks like they're on
counties. The pattern is the same in that
quick.
Mikey Sherrill outperformed not only what the Democratic presidential candidate did in 2024, but outperformed what the Democratic gubernatorial candidate did in 2021, which is exactly what happened in Virginia. That's the remarkable thing, because they were two different elections about two different things. The specific local issues in New Jersey are very different than they are in Virginia, which was always thought to be more about a referendum on Trump and the federal government and DOGE and cuts because of the number of federal workers who influence the economy in Virginia. New Jersey's got different issues, and yet the effect is the same. I will say the one particular thing that happened in both places, in the gubernatorial Republican candidate in Virginia would not distance herself from or criticize Trump. Here's the interesting thing about Jack Ciattarelli. When he ran in 2021, he did better. He's at 43.4% statewide right now. He's at 48% now. Again, people say maybe if he had distanced himself properly from Trump, this might have been different.
Maybe Donald Trump is politically toxic right now.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe if he No, it's not.
Trump has
He
posted
can't
tonight
do
that the reason
anything. Trump
Republicans
just,
lost
he's
is
a
because
vacuum.
he
He just
wasn't on the
sucks
ballot.
up
So apparently, not
all
only
the
does he want to
attention,
stay
and he's just
beyond
making it
2028, he also
terrible
wants to be
for
on all the
Republican
ballots for all the
candidates.
things.
So he is saying they lost. I mean, one last point about this that relates to California gerrymandering. If you want to spread out your voters to take more seats in these states, you are going to have some seats where you're +8. Okay? There's a Trump +8 seat. You take it down from a Trump +15 to a Trump +8. You say, we can spare those 7 points so we can win more seats. If you're looking at tonight, +8 is not so safe. Utah, the proposed gerrymandering they're going to do in Utah had one of those seats going a Trump +2. Now, if you're sitting looking at this map tonight and you're thinking to yourself, do I really want to run a +2 in Utah in a year from now?
Exactly.
Do I really want a +7 rather than a +15, which is the bargain that is being offered me in the states that are doing this gerrymandering?
And tonight isn't even the biggest wave. Tonight is nothing compared to an election after months and months of campaigns. So it's not even like, oh, would a +7 be okay? It's like, would a +10, would a +12, are we gonna be okay? Republicans, oh my gosh, the Republican Party has to be melting down after tonight.
Hey, Chris, if I could just look on that point, because it's such an important point for my fellow Republicans to understand. Just because you draw the lines doesn't indicate how the voters
You don't
will
tell
vote.
them how to vote. Exactly.
You're
You
not
don't get to
telling
do that.
voters how to vote. So even in the great state of Texas, you
That's
still
right.
have no idea how the voters are going to respond to their economies, to their health care, to all of those things. Republicans are not immune from the very things that Democrats have been warning is going to happen with these policies. They, too, are part of this great American landscape like everyone else, and they're going to feel it. So the numbers do matter.
Former U.S. Senator Claire McCaskill from the great state of Missouri has been watching these results along with all of us. Claire, what do you think about what's happening tonight? Seems like a huge, huge night for the Dems.
It is a big, big night. And I wanted to look really at Passaic County in New Jersey was going to be one of my big bellwethers, and that's a county that's been traditionally a Democratic county, but Trump won it, and 43% of the voters are Hispanic. It looks like that Governor-elect Sherrill is going to win that county by 10 points when it's all said and done, at least 10 points. So you're seeing a shift back towards more traditional demographics for the Democratic Party, and you're seeing it all over the country, and it is a reaction to Trump. So here's the point I want to make. We all felt it when corporate leaders all started sucking up to Trump after the election. We watched as the country shifted, the leadership of the country shifted to try to cater to him, to grovel to him, to give him golden plaques and crowns, to give him money, to make his family rich. And I think tonight, the loudest signal that's being sent is to the law firms that bend the knee, to the corporate leaders, to the university presidents. And how about this one? To Republican members of Congress.
Yeah, exactly.
You can grovel all you want.
Yeah.
But in the long run, you're going to have more success if you stand up to this guy.
Yep.
Because this tells you that the American people are paying attention. In everywhere, from Maine, where they turned back to voter suppression law, to Georgia, where they elected Democrats statewide to a state office, which they haven't done in years. This is real. And it will be very interesting to see how the shutdown drama goes over the next week, because I guarantee you there are Republicans that are sitting in the Senate right now and sitting in Congress going, okay, what's plan B?
Yes, exactly. What I've been hearing about the
Right now, real quick. I just want to stop the video real quick, just because I think Eric, 1977, just made a really great point. There are too many unknowns. Like, if the dictator starts a war just to enact martial law to cancel the elections, I wouldn't say that's out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I wouldn't say it's out of the realm of possibility either, because with Donald Trump, nothing is out of the realm of possibility. But what I will say is that while Claire McCaskill has a great point talking about how, senators and Republican senators and Republican House members are going, dude, this Trump brand is the Trump ship is sinking. When do I get off? I would say that Trump, before he even considers like the martial law, he is going to need to whip the Republican House members and Republican senators to try to get them back in his favor. And so that's what we're going to see over the next days, hours, days, weeks, and months. And it's going to be really interesting to see this drama play out between the White House and Congress. So far, they've been pretty good. There's a reason why the government is still shut down. There's a reason why Mike Johnson has gone along with this. There's a reason why Thune, the leader in the Senate, and Senate Republicans have gone along with this. And it's because Donald Trump and his minions in the White House, his Stephen Millers, they're very good at holding these members hostage. So this drama is going to explode in the coming days and weeks, even before we get to Eric's point about martial law. Let's get back to MSNBC's coverage here.
The new world where everything's aligned around Trump. Maybe voters disagree. That's exactly right. Claire McCaskill, we will be back with you. It is now 11 p.m. on the East Coast. Polls have just closed in California. And we can call that race. NBC News
polls can close just from the mail-in.
That the
just
Prop
from the mail-in
50 race in California
is a landslide.
Will be decided in favor. Yes, wins on Prop 50 in California, and we are making that call at poll closing exactly at 11 p.m. Eastern time. It has frankly been that kind of a night. It has just been kind of a blowout night across the board for Democrats. As Chris Hayes was saying earlier, if you had any sort of scorecard that you were looking to fill out tonight, right now you have been putting the same kind of blue check mark on every single important contested race everywhere in the country tonight. In New Jersey, in a race that had been seen potentially as a real squeaker, Democrat Mikey Sherrill has won the governor's race and handily won the governor's race over Trump-endorsed Republican Jack Ciattarelli. NBC News was able to make that call in New Jersey less than 90 minutes.
How many votes do we have in? 93% of the votes.
In New York City, the Democratic nominee Zohran Mamdani has romped to victory over former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was running as an independent, although one endorsed by Trump. Republican Curtis Sliwa ran far behind in the single digits. At 34 years old, Zohran Mamdani will be the youngest New York mayor in over a century, as well as the first Muslim and the first person of South Asian descent to hold that office. This race, again, was not close. Zohran Mamdani appears to have won in 4 out of 5 boroughs, with more than 50% of the vote total citywide. Democrat Abigail Spanberger has been elected the first female governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, beating Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears. Democrats also appear to have flipped multiple seats in the state legislature, potentially growing Democrats' narrow majority in Virginia's House by a lot. They had a 2-seat majority. It looks to have expanded into a much larger majority tonight. Virginia's lieutenant governor's race has also gone to the Democrat. Ghazala Hashmi is the first Muslim woman elected to statewide office in the United States of America. And congratulations to her. In the Virginia Attorney General's race, Democrat Jay Jones has been declared the winner, defeating the incumbent Republican in that Attorney General's race in Virginia. In Pennsylvania, Democrats have retained 3 crucial seats on that state's Supreme Court. They prevailed despite a Republican campaign aimed at getting voters to remove them, a very well-funded campaign, I should add. The result means the top court in Pennsylvania will keep its de facto Democratic majority. That is potentially a huge deal for elections and voting rights in 2026 and 2028, where the court may be called upon to adjudicate election challenges from Donald Trump or his allies. Finally, in the great state of Maine tonight, as Claire McCaskill just mentioned, voters in Maine tonight rejected a Republican-backed measure to restrict voting in that state. It would require voter ID. It would impose other voting restrictions. Maine voters tonight also approved a red flag law that would allow family members or law enforcement to petition a court to take firearms away from somebody who is perceived to be at risk of harming themselves or others. This is widely perceived in Maine to be a response to the mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine 2 years ago. But look at that 20-point margin that we're seeing on the Maine red flag law. Just a remarkable series. Chris, you called this earlier, describing this as sort of Democrats running the table. I think that's exactly right. But I think what's going to emerge in the days ahead, tomorrow and over the next few days, as the data comes in, especially the data comes in fully from California, is margins, significant margins, and turnout. If you've got both the excitement and you've got turnout, you've got voters understanding the assignment, as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez put it earlier tonight, and you're able to put those things together in an off-year election for huge numbers with big margins for Democratic candidates of every type in all sorts of different races, I got to think it's going to have national implications.
I also think it's set off a chain of events on redistricting. And we already saw that with Governor Wes Moore today. I mean, despite, as Michael Steele noted, the state Senate president, who's a Democrat, is opposed to redistricting, he came out today in Maryland and said he was for it. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Governor Pritzker in Illinois to do the same. I mean, this was Prop 50 is a very big victory for Gavin Newsom. This is an idea, as Nicole so eloquently described it, that didn't even exist a couple of months ago. I mean, it wasn't a ballot measure they ran on for 18 months. It was over a couple of months. The other thing I think, and we'll see what happens tomorrow in the next coming days, Democrats won with not without challenge. You know, there was a very unpopular governor in New Jersey that Mikey Sherrill had to sort of figure out how to run against. They tried to buy off 3 state Supreme Court races. A billionaire did in Pennsylvania. They still won those. You know, the attorney general in Virginia overcame text messages that were largely problematic. What I think this tells all of us is there's just like incredible energy and enthusiasm despite all of these efforts to sort of suppress the vote, to make it scary, to prevent people from participating in the process.
The attorney general candidate who had a text message wishing ill on the child of another politician.
A horrible text message.
A horrible text message that I don't think anyone would have won the race by 5 points tonight.
Yeah.
Okay? That everyone thought, this is going to be, there were people called from go out. It was a really bad, there was one that was like an off-color joke. There was one that was like genuinely awful. He won by 5 points. Now, one of the things you take away from that is like, yeah, candidate quality matters, right? Like, he didn't win by 15 points. Gravity does exist. It does matter whether you run the Spanberger race or you run the Jay Jones race where that text comes out. Voters do pay attention, but also the atmosphere matters and the national mood matters. And that sets the level against which people over or underperform. That's the thing you can't control, right, as an individual candidate. And what we're seeing in Virginia, when you look at top of the ticket, middle of the ticket, bottom of the ticket, is that even the bottom of the ticket, who way underperformed, I think the top of the ticket and the mood in Virginia and the national mood is still being carried to
I think one of the things that, you know, someone who's run a lot of races and been involved in politics going back to the 1970s.
We heard what you said.
Yeah. the thing that I love about tonight, and I really hope my friends on the other side of the aisle appreciate what the voters have done tonight and what they're saying. But more importantly, not in the states where there are elections, but in states where there are not elections tonight. Because that vibe flows, it courses throughout the political vein. It's just not isolated to one arm. It's a circulation system. So if this is happening in these locations tonight, it should give you some sense of the pulse
Mr.
that
Steele,
you can tap into
we're a
from
nation.
here to next November. And you cannot lose that energy. You cannot lose that momentum. You have to take what Gavin Newsom did in California and infuse it into the other conversations and strategies, what Spanberger and others have done.
I want to go back to what, was it Hayes? I think that's his name. What Hayes was saying there about how there were these text messages by one of the candidates, and the text messages were wishing ill on the children of his of a Republican. I don't think it was another candidate. I don't think it was this candidate. I think it was like someone from his past, another Republican. I don't know if it was another candidate who he was running against, or it was just someone in the legislature that he was in. But and I don't want to get in trouble here, and I don't want to, you know, I'm not saying that violence is ever an option to settle political differences. But when we are inundated with ICE officers at Donald Trump's command, beating women and Americans and immigrants nearly every day, and when you cut people's SNAP benefits and then you go and host a Great Gatsby party with women, half-naked women, frolicking in champagne glasses, there are going to be people out there who those text messages about, hey, you know, I'm sick of this, and I do wish violence on this Republican Party, like that message is going to resonate, right? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that that's the environment. You know, I'm not on MSNBC, so I can actually kind of get into this here because they can't. And you could tell that Hayes was kind of like touching on that, but that's what we're kind of seeing across the country. You know, there are nights where I know that millions of Americans would love to bust into the White House, grab Donald Trump by his stupid fat chin, and physically drag him out onto the streets, like, and remove him from the White House. So before I get like, oh, I'm getting like, rah, rah, I'm just saying that those text messages from years ago saying like, look, I think what this Republican Party is doing is disgusting, and they're causing physical violence by their voters, they might get it back to them. Those text messages aren't going to run people away from the Democratic Party, not in these elections.
That's the thing you build off on. How you set up 2026 is based off how your voters performed tonight.
And a year ago, people were saying, gosh, COVID, a lot happened.
Right.
Maybe we want the guy back from 4 years ago. And it was a hazy memory.
It was hazy.
And there was a lot of negativity around Biden because we saw him leave the race. We had an unusual year. Here we are 1 year later, and what you just walked through, this sort of Democratic onslaught in these places, Trump had improved his numbers in New Jersey and among Latinos. And Virginia's a place he didn't win, but he was doing fine in some of these regions, not like the Republican Party is doing tonight. Yeah. And in this ensuing under a year, because it's January from the inauguration, you have the actual second-term Donald Trump, which was worse than the first term, according to the polling that you walked through, Rachel, and you pointed out that he's where he was right after January 6th, when Republican leaders were actually criticizing him, when he had Republican defections and, rightfully so, a trial to prepare for. Legally, he wasn't convicted of January 6th-related crimes because we never got the trial. But that's where his polling is now, and people are looking at the actual second-term Trump, which hasn't improved the economy, but has raised the question, do people want to live in a country where the government, big federal government, decides which comedians you can listen to?
Yeah,
and
do we want a
no.
violent and corrupt authoritarian government? Or do we not want that? And there's a lot of different ways to say no to that. And Democratic candidates benefited from that no everywhere in the country tonight.
Yeah, election monitors, too. I mean, we've all talked about election monitors, the Department of Justice sending them. They were trying to scare voters. And people, it seems, in California said, you know what? We're showing up. Yeah. We're going to wait in line. We're not worried about that. And that is also a lesson, I think, because that is definitely a trial run of what they could try to do. We will see, but we should all prepare ourselves for a year from now. People still showed up. They still voted. They still participated in the process. Also in Passaic County, too. And that's an incredibly positive sign about voters out there.
But the election monitor thing was always a crazy Trump mirage, especially when you talk about a state like California.
Yeah.
California has 3,711 polling places.
Massive.
Okay, they don't have 3,000 election monitors for the entire country. Okay, it was always idiotic and impossible. Well, the really striking thing about this California election is the speed. I have never seen government and politics, this is a combination of it, work so fast. Gavin Newsom got this thing ballot ready at the very last minute on the calendar when you could possibly do that.
Boom.
In September in California, no one was talking about
With
this.
22%
This was not
in.
like a
I
presidential September
thought it
where
was
they're
gonna be
talking
70,
about
30, but
who's running
I'll
for
take
president. There was
60-40.
nothing to talk about. And it came along and surged. My guess about it was, yes, it's going to pass. Low voter turnout, but it'll pass. Huge voter turnout and passing. That's a whole other message, and it's a whole other outcome. And it really gelled for me when David Noriega was talking to those people in Torrance, and he was telling us what he was finding. And I think what he found was voters are normally given a choice. This one or that one. This person or that one. Sometimes you're not crazy about either one of them. That's your choice. This time, voters were given a job. You are a legislator right here. And it's this single piece of paper is what we got. I got a California ballot. It was just one thing. You check yes or no. That's it. And it's right in there. It says response to Texas partisan redistricting. Anybody reading it for the first time, a typical voter, is not going to understand it, but they knew what the job was. And whether it took a second reading or the communication on it was so clear that they knew, I'm going in there and I'm voting yes. And we heard them say it for freedom. For freedom is what he said.
When the guy said, stay free, he said, why'd you bring your kids here? What are you doing? Stay free.
Right, he knew he had a job. You gave him a job. You didn't just give him a popularity contest. You gave him a job. Go and do this for us.
Yeah. Before we get to Zohran Mamdani.
I mean, I will say this, right? Because again, I'm in California. We are incredibly proud of our state. I'm in San Diego in California, and if you guys have watched my live streams before where I'm out and about, the George Floyd live stream where I got shot in the leg with a flash grenade, I would do it again and again because I fucking love my city. I love my state. And when we have leaders like Gavin Newsom, who you have to remember, he has young people who are working his social media feeds, and they are doing a fantastic job. He's adopted the whole Donald Trump kind of just bragging and the kind of making Gavin Newsom bigger than life, kind of mocking Donald Trump. They have drawn so much attention to Gavin Newsom, who it doesn't even matter if it's Gavin Newsom, but he's doing as good of a job as you can do in this situation. But if any of our previous governors were to come out and say, hey, look, we need to do this to respond to Donald Trump and to respond to Texas's gerrymandering, we would be showing up. Because we in California are like, we take this very seriously. We are incredibly proud of how liberal we are. We are incredibly proud of the economy that we have. We're incredibly proud of our education system. We are incredibly proud of our diversity. And that is why, going back to the clip of Santa Ana, and if you noticed anything about that clip, those were all Hispanic people in line, because we know how damn important it is to watch out for everyone who can't watch out for themselves. We know how hard these Hispanic people work. There are people who spend hours getting up at 3 a.m, spending hours to cross the border, to come here and to work for 10, 12 hours just to drive home in 45 minutes, because it doesn't take you any time to cross the border into Mexico, and to have a family, to put food on the table, to pay for your rent, and to get some sleep and wake up and do it all over again. And we will do everything in our power to protect those people and protect the immigrant populations that we have here. So I just wanted to put that little, just a little addendum to what these MSNBC hosts are talking about. And again, you can tell I'm not messing around when it comes to defending California and defending our cities here and defending our Mexican American and Latin American brothers and sisters.
Who I think is getting close to giving his, I keep saying this, but it keeps looking like he's close. Before he gives his remarks, Ali Velshi, can I ask you a question about the California vote and what we've got? This was a poll closing call from NBC News, which is, I mean, that's a big deal. It means instantly, as soon as the polls closed, NBC was able to project that Proposition 50 would succeed in California. Do we know anything in terms of, in the 13 minutes since polls have closed, have we gotten a significant amount of vote?
Yeah, and of course, as Jacob said, California is a state where there's a lot of advance voting, a lot of mail-in ballots. So we actually don't have a ton of vote in right now. We've only got about 24%, but the margin tells the story, right? It's 61% yes, 39% no. So a lot of things it's just jumped up to 26%. So it's running around the same place. And again, California is a state that normally votes Democrat. 58% of people voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. So we're running 4% higher than that.
Get up to 70.
We're running around what Biden did in 2020, which is why we're able to call these races so early. So again, it's a small percentage of the number in, but the vote's high, and that was important, right? The turnout. The anti-Prop 50 group basically gave up. They threw in the towel. They stopped funding. They stopped running a lot of ads. They knew they were going to lose, and there's some theory that Donald Trump and others might say, well, as they have said in every special election, turnout was low, lots of money from the outside. It was influence. It wasn't really the voters speaking. But people, as Lawrence just said, were given a job in California, and they seem to have taken their job seriously to say you actually have to come out and vote, voice your opinion on this matter. These turnout numbers are pretty impressive for, as Nicole kept on saying, a ballot 26% that is not tied to a person. There's no one running in California, and yet we have close to 3 million people. That's 26% of the ballots are in, is 3 million people.
Boom, okay.
So we're going to get to almost presidential election turnout levels for a proposition.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
There we go. It's almost 2
Ali,
to 1.
while we have you, as we are waiting a victory speech from Mr. Mamdani, I said a moment ago that it looks like he's going to have won 4 out of 5 New York City boroughs, and that overall it looks like he is going to be above 50%, which is a pretty remarkable thing, particularly when you've got 3 major candidates in the race. Is that fair? And does it look like that's
I mean, we have 90% in, and it sort of stopped at 90, which suggests to me that the rest of this is going to be ballots that are counted later afterwards. New York City wide, Zohran Mamdani has come in with 50.4% of the vote at the moment. The margin's big enough that he's probably going to stay above 50 at this point. In Manhattan, it's almost 53%. In the Bronx, where he was not doing as well, he's now at 51.5%. So he's over 50% in the Bronx as well. In Queens, which is where he's from and where Andrew Cuomo is originally from, it's a slightly tighter race. He's at 47.3% with 89% in, so I'm not sure he'll get to 50% there. Brooklyn, though, look at this, 57% going to Mamdani. And, of course, Staten Island, where you wouldn't have expected it to happen, Mamdani running second now. He's actually overtaken Curtis Sliwa. He's now in second place. Again, it's half of Cuomo's percentage. But when all told, with 90% in, Mamdani is looking like he's above 50% and will probably stay that way.
Do you realize what this is going to do to the self-image of everybody who lives in Staten Island? To learn, to have to tell people on the street in Staten Island, okay, the Democratic Socialists beat the Republican.
It's wild.
In Staten Island.
But as you've been discussing, for those of us who aren't in New York all the time, it was a really complicated thing because there's an actual Republican who was running as the Republican on the ticket.
That's right.
And in the last 24 hours, Elon Musk and Donald Trump and Stephen Miller told the Republicans and the Democrats to vote for the guy who's not the Republican or the Democrat.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in terms of some of the other races.
Because, right, Donald Trump and Stephen Miller and this White House, it's all just patchwork. to them. It's all just like, oh God, there's holes everywhere. Just plug as many as you can. And that's why you see there's no strategy. They're just like, oh God, I don't know. Vote for Cuomo. I don't know. Just keep Mamdani out of it. What are we going to do? They're just no plan. Just another reminder of how terrible this presidency is.
That we have been watching. I want to tell you that in Detroit, Michigan, the AP is projecting that the city council president, Mary Sheffield, will become the first female mayor in the history of the city of Detroit. She follows 75 men who have held that job before her.
Unreal.
In Jersey City, the AP says with more than 60% of the vote in, city council member James Solomon is currently leading a former New Jersey governor named Jim McGreevey, who is attempting a return to politics after resigning under really weird circumstances as New Jersey governor more than 2 decades ago. There's likely going to be there may be a runoff.
Rachel, tell us the circumstances.
Oh my God!
I've seen. There's got to be like,
Who's this McGreevey guy?
If we put them in DVDs, there's a shelf.
There's a
of Rachel, Jim McGreevey.
Rachel, Jim McGreevey, Rachel Bob McDonnell, and Rachel Rod Blagojevich. Get the set. 10 hours on each one. I don't need a script for any of them. In Atlanta, Mayor Andre Dickens is projected to win a second term, earning a majority of the vote there and thus avoiding a runoff. The AP is also showing 99% of the vote in Minneapolis. This has
Back
been
in
interesting.
2004,
Democratic incumbent Mayor
McGreevey
Jacob
said
Fry,
that he engaged in an adult consensual affair with another man.
That's a ranked choice election. That means that voters' second and third choices will be very important in determining the outcome there. If Fry does not get 50%, if he does not get a full
and the first
majority.
openly gay person to serve as the state governor.
And here's Zohran Mamdani, who is mayor-elect of New York City. These are live images right now. This is happening right this second in Brooklyn, New York, at his campaign's election night headquarters. Let's watch.
Okay, let's listen to Mamdani.
Thank you, my friends. The sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity. For as long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns. These are not hands that have been allowed to hold power. And yet, over the last 12 months, you have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty. I wish Andrew Cuomo only the best in private life. But let tonight be the final time I utter his name as we turn the page on a politics that abandons the many and answers only to the few. New York, tonight you have delivered a mandate for change, a mandate for a new kind of politics, A mandate for a city we can afford. And a mandate for a government that delivers exactly that. On January 1st, I will be sworn in as the mayor of New York City. And that is because of you. So before I say anything else, I must say this. Thank you. Thank you to the next generation of New Yorkers who refuse to accept that the promise of a better future was a relic of the past. You showed that when politics speaks to you without condescension, we can usher in a new era of leadership. We will fight for you because we are you. Or as we say on Steinway, ana minkum wa ilaykum. Thank you to those so often forgotten by the politics of our city who made this movement their own. I speak of Yemeni bodega owners and Mexican abuelas, Senegalese taxi drivers and Uzbek nurses, Trinidadian line cooks and Ethiopian aunties. Yes, aunties. To every New Yorker in Kensington and Midwood and Hunts Point, know this. This city is your city, and this democracy is yours too. This campaign is about people like Wesley, an $11.99 organizer I met outside of Elmhurst Hospital on Thursday night. A New Yorker who lives elsewhere, who commutes 2 hours each way from Pennsylvania because rent is too expensive in this city. It's about people like the woman I met on the BX33 years ago, who said to me, I used to love New York, but now it's just where I live. And it's about people like Richard, the taxi driver I went on a 15-day hunger strike with outside of City Hall, who still has to drive his cab 7 days a week. My brother, we are in City Hall now.
Wow. Wow.
This victory is for all of them. And it's for all of you. The more than 100,000 volunteers who built this campaign into an unstoppable force. Because of you, we will make this city one that working people can love and live in again. With every door knocked, every petition signature earned, and every hard-earned conversation, you eroded the cynicism that has come to define our politics. Now, I know that I have asked for much from you over this last year. Time and again, you have answered my calls. But I have one final request. New York City, breathe this moment in. We have held our breath for longer than we know. We have held it in anticipation of defeat. Held it because the air has been knocked out of our lungs too many times to count. Held it because we cannot afford to exhale. Thanks to all of those who sacrificed so much, we are breathing in the air of a city that has been reborn. To my campaign team, who believed when no one else did, and who took an electoral project and turned it into so much more, I I will never be able to express the depth of my gratitude. You can sleep now. To my parents, Mama and Baba, you have made me into the man I am today. I am so proud to be your son. And to my incredible wife, Rama, Hayati, there is no one I would rather have by my side in this moment and in every moment. To every New Yorker, whether you voted for me, for one of my opponents, or felt too disappointed by politics to vote at all, thank you for the opportunity to prove myself worthy of your trust. I will wake each morning with a singular purpose: to make this city better for you than it was the day before. There are many who thought this day would never come, who feared that we would be condemned only to a future of less, with every election consigning us simply to more of the same. And there are others who see politics today as too cruel for the flame of hope to still burn. New York, we have answered those fears. Tonight, we have spoken in a clear voice. Hope is alive. Hope is a decision that tens of thousands of New Yorkers made day after day, volunteer shift after volunteer shift, despite attack ad after attack ad. More than 1 million of us stood in our churches, in gymnasiums, in community centers, as we filled in the ledger of democracy. And while we cast our ballots alone, we chose hope together. Hope over tyranny. Hope over big money and small ideas. Hope over despair. We won because New Yorkers allowed themselves to hope that the impossible could be made possible. And we won because we insisted that no longer would politics be something that is done to us. Now it is something that we do. Standing before you, I think of the words of Jawaharlal Nehru. A moment comes but rarely in history when we step out from the old to the new, when an age ends and when the soul of a nation long suppressed finds utterance. Tonight we have stepped out from the old into the new. So let us speak now with clarity and conviction that cannot be misunderstood about what this new age will deliver and for whom. This will be an age where New Yorkers expect from their leaders a bold vision of what we will achieve, rather than a list of excuses for what we are too timid to attempt. Central to that vision will be the most ambitious agenda to tackle the cost of living crisis that this city has seen since the days of Fiorello LaGuardia. An agenda that will freeze the rents for more than 2 million rent-stabilized tenants. Make buses fast and free. And deliver universal child care across our city. Years from now, may our only regret be that this day took so long to come. This new age will be one of relentless improvement. We will hire thousands more teachers. We will cut waste from a bloated bureaucracy. We will work tirelessly to make lights shine again in the hallways of NYCHA developments where they have long flickered. Safety and justice will go hand in hand as we work with police officers to reduce crime and create a department of community safety that tackles the mental health crisis and homelessness crises head on.
Yeah, amen.
Excellence will become the expectation across government, not the exception. In this new age we make for ourselves, we will refuse to allow those who traffic in division and hate to pit us against one another. In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light. Here, we believe in standing up for those we love. Whether you are an immigrant, a member of the trans community, one of the many black women that Donald Trump has fired from a federal job, a single mom still waiting for the cost of groceries to go down, or anyone else with their back against the wall, your struggle is ours too. And we will build a city hall that stands steadfast alongside Jewish New Yorkers and does not waver in the fight against the scourge of anti-Semitism. Where the more than 1 million Muslims know that they belong. Not just in the 5 boroughs of this city, but in the halls of power. No more will New York be a city where you can traffic in Islamophobia and win an election. This new age will be defined by a competence and a compassion that have too long been placed at odds with one another. We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about. For years, those in City Hall have only helped those who can help them.
Okay, so audio's out. Okay, apologies. Okay, let's back it up.
And if we embrace this brave new course, rather than fleeing from it, we can respond to oligarchy and authoritarianism with the strength it fears, not the appeasement it craves. After all, if anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, It is by dismantling the very conditions that allowed him to accumulate power. This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. We will hold bad landlords to account because the Donald Trumps of our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks. We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant.
There are some badass moments in this speech.
So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us. When we enter City Hall in 58 days, expectations will be high. We will meet them. A great New Yorker once said that while you campaign in poetry, you govern in prose. If that must be true, let the prose we write still rhyme and let us build a shining city for all. And we must chart a new path, as bold as the one we have already traveled. After all, the conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this. And yet, if tonight teaches us anything, it is that convention has held us back. We have bowed at the altar of caution and we have paid a mighty price. Too many working people cannot recognize themselves in our party. And too many among us have turned to the right for answers to why they've been left behind. We will leave mediocrity in our past. No longer will we have to open a history book for proof that Democrats can dare to be great. Our greatness will be anything but abstract. It will be felt by every rent-stabilized tenant who wakes up on the first of every month, knowing the amount they're going to pay hasn't soared since the month before. It will be felt by each grandparent who can afford to stay in the home they have worked for and whose grandchildren live nearby because the cost of childcare didn't send them to Long Island. It will be felt by the single mother who is safe on her commute and whose bus runs fast enough that she doesn't have to rush school drop-off to make it to work on time. And it will be felt when New Yorkers open their newspapers in the morning and read headlines of success, not scandal. Most of all, it will be felt by each New Yorker when the city they love finally loves them back. Together, New York, we're going to freeze the... Together, New York, we're going to make buses fast and... Together, New York, we're going to deliver universal... Let the words we've spoken together, the dreams we've dreamt together, become the agenda we deliver together. New York, this power, it's yours. This city belongs to you. Thank you.
Yeah, badass. Badass. I really like what...
a powerhouse victory speech
what,
from Zohran Mamdani.
What he did there. Hold on, Rachel. Hold on. I really like what he did there, starting with New York, ending with New York, and in the middle, addressing Donald Trump, telling him, turn the volume up. Kind of poking at him because he's old. And he's getting to, he's having a hard time with his mental capacities here. But yes, New York bookended with a shot at Donald Trump and a reminder to Donald Trump that with a fantastic line, if you want to come for any New Yorker, you have to go through. And I thought he was going to say, you got to go through me. He says, you got to go through all of us. And that was the central theme of that speech. We're all in it together. He ended by having the crowd chant with him his campaign slogans, promising fast and free buses and free healthcare and the rent freeze. And what I thought was one of the most badass moments was when he talked about the 15-day hunger strike outside of City Hall, and then the hunger strike that he did with another gentleman, and then said to that gentleman, we are now in City Hall.
In how you will approach the job going forward. And it's something that has been completely absent from Donald Trump, who has never spent one day of his life thinking about a voter who didn't already vote for him.
Stephanie Roll.
4 words for you, Donald Trump. Turn the volume up. The extraordinary thing about his campaign and his message tonight, while one might say, he's young, he's out there, he's not wild. He's as disciplined as they come, especially when it comes to messaging, which is all about affordability. So he's goading Donald Trump, who is the opposite of disciplined. And what Donald Trump is hoping Zohran Mamdani will deliver, I don't think he's going to. And to Lawrence's point, sort of speaking to all of New York, that was something.
Yeah. Jen?
I was struck by, the range of people he quoted. He started off by quoting Eugene Debs, who, of course, was a socialist presidential candidate. That was a choice. He quoted Mario Cuomo, also a choice. He quoted
without naming him.
Without naming him.
A great New Yorker.
He quoted the Prime Minister of India. But one of the things that struck me, I think Lawrence's point is a really important one, and you heard that also from Mikey Sherrill, you heard that from Abigail Spanberger. But what you also heard from him is a proud embrace of exactly who he is. And I think that message, a big message of his speech tonight, was for the people who haven't voted before, who have not participated before, who feel that politics is removed from them, that it is all in an ivory tower, that it's in a secret room in D.C. or a secret back room in New York, wherever it may be. And I think a big part of his message was to that audience. And tomorrow, he will have to continue to build and continue to build support and govern for all New Yorkers. But that's what I heard from the speech.
All right.
It was a fantastic speech, given all the context. Nation of immigrants, he's an immigrant. Talks about New York and facing down this president. Not many 30-something-year-old new mayors are taken seriously when they say they're in dialogue with the president. who's from New York, by the way. And on the parochial but relevant thing, because he made a lot of cultural connections here, we're told that at the victory party, they did play some 50 Cent, even though they've been clashing over tax policy. 50 wants lower taxes for millionaires, Zorn wants higher taxes. But footnote, he walked out to Ja Rule's New York, New York. That is 50 Cent's biggest enemy. They had a long-running feud. And Zorn Mamdani, unlike some people, actually is involved in his playlist. It's not being picked by somebody else. So even the New York of it all, the music of it all, yes, some of us like music, but that actually is part of how he campaigned online and with people, and it felt authentic. Also, since it's come up so much, mention it, he talked about diversity and hate crimes. He talked about being a proud Muslim, the authentic point you mentioned, and he also spoke just then tonight about fighting anti-Semitism, which is a real problem in New York, Europe, the Middle East, a lot of places.
And when he said, if you want to come for any one of us, you're going to have to come through all of us.
Good line.
Very good line.
I also just thought, every time there's an election, there's like a whole discourse where you try to reverse engineer from the crosstabs of the polls, and that's what everyone does. But what ends up happening is that, charisma matters a lot.
Yeah.
And innovation matters. And individual people going out there and trying new stuff and figuring it out. And it doesn't end up ever getting reverse engineered from the crosstabs of the data, even though that has to inform what people do. But what happens is new politics get created when new people try new things in the right moment. And it feels like that's what you're watching today.
Yeah, and
Yeah, and I mean, he also, he's speaking to a lot of us who are in our 30s to 40s now, the millennials who have dealt with a tremendous amount of political drama in our lives and economic drama in our lives and, governmental drama, I guess, if you will, in our lives. And doing, the way he was speaking, putting those three things, right? It was the childcare, the buses, and the rent freeze. Just giving us three things that we can tangibly hold on to and say, look, this is what we can all agree will make all of us better. I think that's the perfect, nutrition, the perfect food for us millennials who we do want to make this place better somehow. We do want to leave it better than when we found it, and we want to leave it better when we leave this place. I think that was really crafty, and I think that's not just the I don't know what Hayes was saying there, how he described it, the his personality, but he just has an understanding of the times, the time that we're living in.
A party, for all of its faults and all of its cowardice, can recognize a really impressive talent who comes along who doesn't check the boxes they wanted that talent to check, but is nevertheless open to it. I thought about that when we had Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez hosting her on our air tonight for an interview, just thinking about the way the Democratic establishment was so rocked by her, and what's happened in the interim years since she's been in Congress is that they have begrudgingly recognized that she is an incredible talent. And yeah, she'll be a lightning rod and she'll take it, but she loves that too, and she can make the most out of that.
And the boxes to check are different in different states.
Exactly, and in every different race, and in some of the same states in different times. It just,
She also campaigned her heart out for Joe Biden. And she's campaigned her heart out for people who she did not align with 100%.
Yeah.
And that is something that when she calls for other people to do the same, it comes from a place of that she's done that. And that's an important part of moving forward. I think the other thing about politics is it's really about how you feel, how you make people feel as a candidate or being a part of a movement. And I obviously, Barack Obama was his own moment in time, but that was a cultural moment that brought people in because they felt like they were a part of something bigger than themselves. And yes, with Mamdani in a certain way, also with Prop 50. I mean, people in line they are talking like they are a part of something. They're culturally a part of something. They're bringing their kids. They're bringing their neighbors. They're there proudly waiting in line. And that, when politics is working, that is what it is about.
Also, getting the Prop 50 poll closing call tonight. I can't overstate. Look at how big the margin is. I will say, let me just interject, Chris, and don't let me cut you off what you're going to say. But we are expecting Governor Gavin Newsom of California to speak on the Prop 50 results shortly. We weren't totally sure that was going to happen tonight, but we think he's going to speak here momentarily.
Probably a smart thing to do.
Yeah, of course he's going to speak.
Get up there.
Newsom,
I mean,
man.
you know, we have been told there was a narrative because of how shocking, in some senses, Trump's win was. Not because it's shocking that he won. It's a 50-50 country. Inflation was high. The one party dumped the incumbent president off their ticket a few months ago. It's not crazy, but there was this like idea that because Donald Trump won by 1.5 percentage points, everything was now different. The country had been totally transformed. Everything was different. These 1.5 percentage points meant the character of the very nation and the culture and the vibes and everything was utterly transformed. It's like, it's still the same country.
But Chris,
like,
the key
people
thing...
went from 1.5 out of 100 people went from over here to over here. And what you see tonight is like, this is the same country. It is a very divided country. People are not happy with the economy. It doesn't mean that, like, Democrats are going to win everything now. It just means that, like, it's been the same country the whole time with all of its, like, contradictions and internal
And the 7 million people that showed up for the No Kings protest, who were not paid protesters, might also want different things, but they stand against what Donald Trump is standing for. So when Donald Trump is trying to define the Democratic Party, his social media message tonight, they went woke. When Abigail Spanberger was getting her MBA at Purdue, when Mikey Sherrill was at the U.S. Naval Academy and then a helicopter pilot, or when Mamdani was speaking in Staten Island and Brooklyn and Queens about affordable housing. Yeah. So if they stay true to not allowing Republicans to say Democrats are fill in the blank, then they're going to represent a huge swath of the American people.
Yeah,
and let me just recap
she
just for a
raises
second.
a good point.
So
I will
New Jersey governor's
just kind of push back a little bit. Like, we all know what gone woke it means. It's a dog whistle for black culture in America. It's Stephen Miller's and the white supremacists in Donald Trump's administration who use that as a dog whistle. Yeah.
Not at all a sure thing. Not at all seen as a sure thing going in tonight. Democrats win the New Jersey governor's race with Mikey Sherrill. New York City mayor, we just saw Zohran Mamdani wins in New York City. In California, in the redistricting measure, which again brings people out to vote on a one-question ballot, that's it. In a time when California voters do not vote, we get a poll closing yes, and it looks like it is 30-point margin that we're going to have. We're going to hear from the governor shortly. In Pennsylvania, Republicans pulled out all the
it's on its way to
and
40.
spent $1 gazillion trying to pull 3 Democratic justices off the state Supreme Court. They lost in every single one of those. In Maine, there was a voting rights restriction. They lost that. In Maine, there was a red flag law for gun safety. They won that. In Virginia governor's race, it goes to the Democratic candidate Abigail Spanberger. In the Virginia lieutenant governor's race, it goes to the Democrat. In the Virginia attorney general's race, it goes to the Democrat. In the Virginia state legislature, we went into this tonight with a 51-49 lead from the Democrats. In Virginia, the Democrats have flipped at least 13 seats tonight. They went from 51-49 to 64-35 in the Virginia House of Delegates tonight, with 1 seat still remaining to be called. And that matters not only because it tells you what the temperature was in Virginia tonight, it also matters because after California and what they've done tonight, the redistricting issue is really, really alive for Democratic-controlled states. And Virginia is about to be a Democratic-controlled state. And what happens in that House of Delegates, with the margin in particular, is going to decide whether or not Virginia can also redistrict along the same lines that California is tonight. Kansas Republicans decided today that they are not going to redistrict to try to get one more Republican seat out of Kansas. They would need a supermajority to do it. Here's Gavin Newsom in California.
A party that is in its ascendancy, a party that's on its toes, no longer on its heels. From coast to coast, sea to shining sea. But it was not just a victory tonight for the Democratic Party. It was a victory for the United States of America, for the people of this country and the principles that our founding fathers lived and died for. And so we're proud. We're proud here in California to be part of this narrative this evening. We're proud of the work that the people of the state of California did tonight to send a powerful message to an historic president. Donald Trump is an historic president. He is the most historically unpopular president in modern history.
Get him, Gavin.
In every critical category, Donald Trump is underwater. He promised to make us healthier. He promised to make us wealthier. We're sicker and poorer. And he fundamentally understands that. Why else would he call Greg Abbott saying he's entitled to 5 seats? Why else is he trying to rig the midterm elections before one single vote is even cast? He understands his position at this moment in the United States of America. One thing he never counted on, though, was the state of California. Instead of agonizing over the state of our nation, we organized in an unprecedented way in a 90-day sprint. People from all over the United States of America contributed their voices and their support for this initiative. We stood tall and we stood firm in response to Donald Trump's recklessness. And tonight, after poking the bear, this bear roared with an unprecedented turnout in a special election with an extraordinary result. None of us, however, are naive. This is a pattern. This is a practice. Donald Trump's efforts to rig the midterm election continue to this day. And I'll reinforce that in just a moment. You're seeing him take action all across this country, not just in Texas. You saw what they were successfully able to do in Missouri, what they did in North Carolina, what they're trying to do in Indiana, and inevitably in Florida. They are not screwing around. In June of this year, we saw 4,000 National Guard federalized in the state of California. We saw 700 active duty Marines not sent overseas, but sent to the second largest city in the United States of America to militarize our streets. We said in June this was a preview of things to come. What more evidence do you need than what happened in Washington, D.C., what's happening up in Portland, cities like Chicago? When we kicked off this campaign just 90 or so days ago in Little Tokyo, in Southern California, in L.A., at the Democracy Center, Donald Trump sent Greg Bovino. He sent his private police force that increasingly appears to have taken an oath of office to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution of the United States. He sent them to our kickoff rally to chill free expression, to chill free speech, to intimidate people from participating. Just today, in Los Angeles, Donald Trump called up the Border Patrol, sent them to Dodger Stadium, and threw a fastball at free speech, right at the head, free expression, to suppress the vote in America's second largest city. Just did that today. People in tactical gears sent out to intimidate a community that is already on edge. But you see, as we speak, people are still in line. People waiting up 3 hours to cast their vote, to send a message to Donald Trump. No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents. It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America. And this is a victory that's punctuated with a sober reminder that it's not just the actions that Donald Trump has taken to federalize our guard, to begin the process of militarizing American cities, to intimidate free expression and speech, by utilizing ICE and Border Patrol in American cities. But he also announced today, right when polls were opening, that this election was rigged. That this election was rigged. Of course, those are familiar words. It's exactly what Donald Trump said after January 6th, that day of love, where he tried to light democracy on fire. He tried to wreck this country, and he called in to the Secretary of State in Georgia, calling up for 11,000, 12,000 votes, just like he called Greg Abbott, saying he's entitled to those 5 seats. He said this election was rigged, and he's moving to look for criminal prosecution and investigations at the Department of Justice. He is not screwing around. So tonight, I'm proud, but I'm very mindful and sober of the moment we are living in. Donald Trump does not believe in fair and free elections, period and full stop. This is not complicated, and it's self-evident to anyone paying attention. You start to stack up all of these actions that continue to this moment and will continue in moments to come. If you think I'm exaggerating, consider his announcement just a few weeks ago to send rapid response teams all across the United States, in all 50 states, tens of thousands of members of the military prepared for urban deployment. A preview of things to come. But back to this state. Our state of mind was resolute. Our state of mind was resolved to stand firm and to stand tall, to not be intimidated, to not be humiliated, to not fall prey to cynicism, to not fall prey to fear and the anxiety of someone that believes in only one thing, shock and awe, to intimidate and exhaust us. But we're seeing all across this country, 7 million people strong, standing up, not just for themselves, but for each other and for these enduring and historic principles of our founding fathers. And I'll end on that. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the best of Roman Republic, the best of Greek democracy. This fundamental notion of a system of checks and balances, of popular sovereignty, the rule of law. Mr. President, the rule of law, not the rule of dawn. And I hope it's dawning on people, the sobriety of this moment, what's at stake. Tonight, as I said, is an extraordinary moment for our party, but again, it's an extraordinary moment affirming those principles. Our founding fathers did not live and die to see the kind of vandalism to this republic and our democracy that Donald Trump is trying to perpetuate. And so my call tonight, in the spirit of Whitman, who talked about the powerful play, goes on. We all must contribute a verse. And so we need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York, in Illinois, in Colorado. We need to see other states with their remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026. And let me make this crystal clear. We can de facto end Donald Trump's presidency as we know it the minute Speaker Jeffries gets sworn in as Speaker of the House of Representatives. It is all on the line, a bright line in 2026. And so I want to thank everybody that stood up, not just for our democracy, but stood up for those that have feel bullied and intimidated, stood up for this notion of co-equal branches of government and a system of checks and balances. And I want to thank my wife, who reminds me every single day that this is about those that feel alone, those that feel isolated, those that feel an anxiety and a stress that they never could have imagined in their lives. This was about saying to them, we have your back, we see you, you matter, we care. And I'll just say this, I'm confident as we move forward into 2026 in this country, the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
What's the lesson for other Democrats?
Yeah. Okay. Great speech there. And, you know, at the end, him talking about that message to the people feeling isolated and feeling anxious and feeling isolated, feeling alone, right? Is that we're with you. And that is something, especially, you know, someone who works from home on a channel by himself, essentially. I felt that in the past 10 months, and I know a lot of us have. And that is one of the reasons why I wanted to come on here and go live with all of you guys, because there hasn't been much to celebrate in the past year. It's been pretty damn tough. And tonight is a big win. Now, I do want to go and give a little bit of analysis on Gavin Newsom's speech there, because he kind of did what Mamdani did, where he bookended this speech and then went and kind of had a national message to Donald Trump. So he started talking about California and ended with California, but he started to get into the national messaging of, you know, Donald Trump deploying armed guards to armed soldiers to American cities. And then he tried to, he pulled back a little bit. And the reason I wanted to talk about that was because it's pretty clear that Gavin Newsom's going to run for president of the United States in 2028. And so I was kind of listening to him veer into an almost presidential campaign speech before he kind of reeled it back to California. And it kind of got me thinking about campaign speeches and what they're going to sound like in 2026 and what they're going to sound like in 2028 and what they're going to sound like in 2036, right? What they're going to sound like in 2044. If Donald Trump is this terrible, I mean, I think the Democratic Party is going to hold on to his name for a while, right? I mean, I know Republicans will throw other just terrible candidates at us, but these midterm elections are going to be about, you know, what have you done to stand up to Donald Trump? That's the messaging Democrats have to hold on to when they go up in these debates against Republicans, because it's very clear that Americans don't want what Donald Trump is selling based on tonight. And so they're going to ask these Republican candidates, what did you do? What did you do when push came to shove to stand up for the American people and to push back against Donald Trump, stripping away health care, stripping away people's ability to eat while he throws Great Gatsby parties, destroying the White House, having a pay-to-play mindset in the White House, being utterly and abhorrently corrupt. What did you do? And Republicans are going to fail that. They're going to fail that in 2026, just like they failed that tonight. They're going to fail that in 2028, and Gavin Newsom might be the next president of the United States. But they're also going to fail that for a long time. These elections down the road, not just these midterms or the next presidential election or the election years after that, but for a long time, Donald Trump is going to be an albatross hanging around the necks of the Republican Party.
For what has happened in California as being part of a larger fight for democracy all across this country. Michael, real soon we're going to hear from the governor. What do you think about what he just said?
Look, it was actually the perfect capstone to the night. I mean, when you think about how the evening began, the questions that swirled around about how the Democrats were going to perform, who's going to win, who's going to be up or down, whether or not this proposition would actually get off the ground in any measurable way. And at 8 o'clock, this evening, as the polls were closing, there were still lines of people. And it said a lot about the energy that has been struck across the country. And I think that's a very powerful opening bell to the 2026 cycle, right?
Indeed.
Simone, you get that, right?
Yeah. Speaking of energy, good morning or good evening, depending on where you are watching from. Thank you for being up with us for MSNBC's special coverage of Election Night 2025. I'm Alicia Menendez here with Simone Sanders-Townsend and Michael Steele. It is midnight on the East Coast and 9 p.m. in California. Tonight, the voters have spoken, and they have delivered huge wins for Democrats in the first major referendum on Donald Trump's second term. In Virginia, MSNBC projects Democrat Abigail Spanberger has won the race for governor, soundly defeating Republican Winsome Earl Sears.
Thank you for subscribing.
Her massive victory boosting Democrats in down-ballot races as well, electing Democrat Ghazala Hashmi as the state's next lieutenant governor. She is now the first Muslim-American woman elected statewide to office in the United States. Democrat Jay Jones, who won the race for Virginia Attorney General.
Thank you for subscribing.
In New Jersey, MSNBC projects Democrat Mikey Sherrill has won the state's race for governor, defeating Trump-endorsed Jack Ciattarelli and outpacing Kamala Harris's performance in the state last year. And in New York City, Democrat Zohran Mamdani soundly won the race for mayor, beating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. MSNBC can also project California voters have approved Prop 50, giving the green light to a new congressional map that counters Trump-sanctioned GOP gerrymandering in red-leaning states ahead of next year's midterm elections. Here's how Democrats address their supporters tonight.
We are a nation founded on ideas, but we are a country where it is up to us, the citizens, who must put those ideas into action.
Here in New Jersey, we know that this nation has not ever been, nor will it ever be, ruled by kings. We take oaths to a constitution, not a king. We've chosen liberty, the very foundation of democracy, and we've chosen prosperity necessary to create opportunity for all.
And while we cast our ballots alone, we chose hope together. Hope over tyranny. Hope over big money and small ideas. Hope over despair.
A lot of big results.
I just want to note that the President of the United States was paying attention to this evening. And on Truth Social on Tuesday, he posted, Trump wasn't on the ballot and shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight. According to pollsters, Donald Trump did not name the unknown pollsters.
Isn't he the reason there's a shutdown?
Come on now. Look, if this were any other election cycle,
okay, so let's imagine, let's say he is the reason for the shutdown and he knows he's the reason for the shutdown. You would think with that Truth Social post that maybe, just maybe, he's learned his lesson. And maybe, just maybe, Republicans will come to the table and say, all right, look, the cuts to health care, we'll back off. Let's reopen this thing. But to be honest with you, it's such a shit show at this White House that I guarantee that Donald Trump is not going to learn his lesson tonight.
Main stories going into Election Day would have been that the sitting president of the United States, who was just elected exactly 1 year ago tonight, was not asked to appear with any of the major candidates in this race. That the sitting president of the United States, who won election exactly 1 year ago today, was not out on the campaign trail aggressively. That the sitting president was only asked to do a teletown hall the night before Election Day, where he didn't even say the name of the Republican candidate in Virginia. Tonight, what I saw across all of these races is that the people do still have the power. The people have the power, that organizing matters, infrastructure matters, and I know we're going to get into all those specific races, but if we want to just zero in specifically on New Jersey very quickly, I talked to a lot of people in the lead up to Election Day that said this was a turnout election, and what they did specifically when it comes to black voters, people in the state told me that for black voters, this election was bigger than Mikey Sherrill. They said this was about their freedom, and I was like, ooh, it's feeling like the Underground Railroad chit-chat here.
I was going to ask you, you then, could you encapsulate then the difference from the folks you talked to in that turnout model mindset? Because you and I know what that means on the ground. You know what it's like to cover a story where the people are staying at home, right? What's the difference between 24 and tonight?
Well, look, again, one of the folks that I talked to that has been very engaged in organizing specifically African-American voters and getting those folks to turn out said to me that the difference is that people are seeing all across New Jersey what is happening across the country, and that they felt, Black voters especially, felt that this election was their chance to defend their freedom. That they are seeing what Donald Trump has done all across the country elsewhere.
So it's settling in.
And it's settled in for them. In Virginia, I heard the same thing. I know we'll have the Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates, Don Scott, on, who is feeling very good, frankly, right about now, given what's happening in Virginia in the House of Delegates. He specifically and others in the state said to me that the voters, it wasn't about Abigail Spanberger specifically. It was about what is happening in this country and what Virginians had the ability to do to protect Virginians and make a stand. And I think if you look at the turnout numbers, and I know we'll go to Velshi in a second, but if you look at the numbers and just the sheer difference between 2024 turnout and 2025 turnout, again, a year ago today, to me, that says people really did believe when the Democratic candidate said that this election was your chance to have your voice heard. And for people that don't think elections matter, look at California.
Yeah, what about Jersey? I mean,
Yeah. So, okay. Now, on that note, on the note of the election in 2024 compared to this election, it's my firm belief that Donald Trump was so terrible campaigning for 2024 that the American people, a small enough group, but big enough to make the difference, said, look, this guy's such a loser. There's no way the American people vote for him. There's no way he wins the presidency after taking us down the road of COVID, after January 6th, after the classified documents, after the felonies in New York, after the fraud, after the rape, after the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. I mean, the American people let one slip on them. And that, I think, is also a major factor in this election. I mean, sure, Donald Trump's behavior, the shutdown, ICE agents and videos of ICE agents on the streets, it's of course impacting this. But it's also the American people going, oh, he managed to get in? He managed to win that presidential election? Never again. And I think that sentiment, along with everything Donald Trump has done in the past 10 months, is the reason we're seeing the blue wave that we're seeing.
You had your finger on that pulse for most of the season, and how does that read a year later? Jersey 2024, Jersey 25.
You know, I was talking to organizers who've been doing this work since the day Donald Trump won last year, and they told me a story of a voter they had just recently canvassed with who said, listen, I traditionally voted for Democrats. I voted for Donald Trump last year, and nothing has changed for me. And their answer wasn't, so I'm definitely going to go vote for Mikey Sherrill. Their answer was, I am not sure that I am meant to be a part of this process. And that was, to me, chilling. And so to see these turnout numbers tonight, to interview, and I interviewed a woman today. Her husband was in the hospital. He had just had a stroke. She brought her child from the hospital to her polling place because she said, it is just that important to me. I am watching what is happening with immigration all across this country, and this is not who we are. And it was so important to me that I left my husband's bedside to come here to this polling place and cast that vote. And that energy is what we are seeing all across this country.
That energy is something that certainly was captured on the big board, and we got our man Ali Velshi to sort of tap into that energy that he covered tonight.
I want to show you some numbers. Okay, this is the Prop 50 in California. We've got 65% of the vote in. It was very easy to call. We called this the minute polls closed because look at the spread here. Take the 4.5 million people who voted for it, the 2.5 million people who voted against it. That's 65%. You add that together, you get to 11 million people. Let me show you a couple interesting things. The 2024 presidential election in California, 15.8 million people voted. The 2020 presidential election, 17.5 million people. Yeah. 11 million people came out to vote, and there wasn't a human on the ballot. I mean, that's kind of amazing. Take a look at another ballot measure I want to just show you about. We don't talk too much about Pennsylvania. Nobody cares about these things. They have this weird system where you elect somebody to the Supreme Court. They get 10 years, and in 10 years, you get to vote up or down, yes or no. Do they get to stay or they don't? Normally, this is a sleepy little election. 3 Democrats were up for retention, as they call it. The richest man in Pennsylvania put a lot of money into getting them recalled. Got wiped. Look at this. 93% in, 60% voted to retain those people. These are not even the stories that are the main stories. Zoran Mamdani, we're looking at the numbers coming in from New York. We're almost done because we got 91% in. You're probably not going to get a lot more tonight. These are late ballots that are coming in. 50.4% of the vote. He won in Manhattan. He got 53%. In the Bronx, 51%. In Queens, where he's from, where Andrew Cuomo's from, and where Donald Trump is from, Zoran Mamdani got 47%, beating Cuomo. In Brooklyn, 57% of the vote. In Staten Island, where we expected he'd lose, look at this. Cuomo won. Zoran Mamdani comes in at half the number. Curtis Sliwa, the actual Republican in the race, was in 3rd place. And then you're talking about these other rates. Virginia, we were talking about this earlier. Virginia, we expected would be a Democratic victory, and it was. Take a look at the statewide margin. It's 57 to 42.5 in Virginia. We expected. None of the polls indicated that broad a margin, but we thought it would be a victory. Take a quick look at what New Jersey, which at the beginning of the night, there are people who thought, you know what, Jack Ciattarelli might win. The margin's very, very similar. The patterns are even similar. Places where Kamala Harris won in 2024, Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger outperformed. Places where Donald Trump won in 2024, Jack Ciattarelli underperformed. The pattern is the same across the country, whether it's in California, where no one was on the ballot, in Pennsylvania, a judicial election that people don't pay any attention to, in New York, which the whole world was paying attention to, and in Virginia and New Jersey. This was a clean sweep across the board.
A clean sweep across the board. Let's also bring into the conversation former Senator Claire McCaskill. She is now an MSNBC political analyst. And I will just note, it is about, 12:13 Eastern, and we have now officially entered the 36th day of the government shutdown. This is now the longest government shutdown in history.
Yeah, I think you're going to see something move on that, especially after tonight. I'd like to be a fly on the wall at this breakfast in the morning that Trump is hosting for the Republican senators, because they know that they are not winning this fight right now. And there's a group of folks in the Senate. The majority of the Democrats that are working on this are not running next time. They're people who have decided not to run and are retiring, along with Angus King from Maine, who have been working on trying to get an off-ramp, a 3-legged stool involving some appropriations going, some kind of agreement on a limited continuing resolution to keep funding the government, and then a vote on the health care bill. The details have to be worked out, I think, and I think they've got to figure out if it's a 50-vote margin on the Obamacare subsidies or whether it's a 60-vote margin. But I think it'll move in this next week. I think something will happen. And I talked about this earlier tonight, but I think it's really important. This is being felt seriously in Congress by Republican members of Congress. I guarantee you they're looking. You look at Passaic County in New Jersey, which I've kept an eye on all day because it's a 43% Hispanic district in New Jersey. Trump won it last year.
It was the first Republican to win it since 1992 when George H.W. Bush was on the ballot.
He won it, and she's going to win that county by 15 points. So we're talking about an 18-point swing. in a county in New Jersey, and that is just the tip of the iceberg of what happened. So, and by the way, Kansas announced tonight they're not going to redistrict.
Interesting.
They were going to try to take Sharice Davids out of her seat in Johnson County, Kansas, which has become more Democratic over the years. Now, I think there's a little bit of play going on behind the scenes because she said, if you redistrict me out, I'm going to run against Roger Marshall for the Senate. And I don't think Roger Marshall wanted Sharice Davids running against him for the Senate, especially after tonight's result. So they basically closed the tent tonight and said, we're not going to give Trump another seat in Kansas. Now, I think what Gavin Newsom said is they've got to really get busy in Illinois and Maryland and Virginia and to even this up.
Well, they'll have to get, you're right about the getting busy part. And Gavin Newsom has just really plowed a whole different kind of energy into the idea of voting, right? That this is something to actually fight for. And I don't think that has really been contextualized for a lot of Americans before. And he's taken a long step towards that. I agree with you on where Republicans are moving. I had a couple of conversations last week about the prospects that when Trump got back into town, and Trump had already signaled to some folks in Washington, maybe we can move something here. So you're right. I think next week you're going to see some action there. Tonight, however, was just a cold bucket of water for tomorrow morning's meeting. But here's the question.
Yeah.
How do you...
Real quick, before we get to his question, that meeting, okay, and Claire McCaskill there talking about how she has faith that something's going to move on the government shutdown. Man, maybe I'm not that confident because my brain just goes to, okay, these guys are just as corrupt as possible, right? As evil as possible. They are willing to do anything to try to wrestle back the power. I don't know if they're going to say, all right, well, negotiate with Democrats. I think there's going to be a lot of hand-wringing at tomorrow's meeting. A lot of threats from Donald Trump and from Stephen Miller. I mean, I think what's going to be really interesting is going to be watching these representatives. I think they said it was a Senate meeting. It's going to be watching these senators come out and whether or not they'll be willing to actually discuss what happened in the meeting. And it's also going to be interesting to kind of parse each senator apart from one another and see whether or not they're telling the truth. It's almost like we're going to be like detectives here tomorrow to try to figure out, are they all one party? Do they all still support Donald Trump? Or has tonight really launched the Republican Party into an all-out civil war between Republicans in the Senate and Donald Trump in the White House? Because we know that they have been hand in hand together, letting Donald Trump run free, and they've enabled the corruption. Now we're going to start to see whether or not they will kind of buck him as he tries to threaten each and every one of them to bring them back under the tent. Robbie Inch just subscribed. Thank you, man. Thank you for the subscription. There are hundreds of people watching on YouTube. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Be sure to like that, like the live stream, and subscribe if you haven't. And also, please feel free to share your reflections in the comments. It's open to everyone. So you don't have to be a subscriber. You don't have to be a member. Anybody can share their reflections and tell me just how wrong I am or just how right I am. Anything goes on this channel.
How do you assess what were some of the drivers here in these numbers, in these margins? You've been on the ballot. You know what voters get ticked off about and what they get excited about. And then when a malaise sets in, it's hard to overcome that. I was asking Simone about the difference between 24 and 25. Same for Alicia in a place like New Jersey. What do you think is a trigger? Is it just the idea of the shutdown? Is it the economy? Is it voting rights on the ballot? How do you see it?
I think we've made a mistake, and we've talked about this earlier today, that we sometimes say on this network that voters are numb to all the things Trump has done. Turns out they're not numb. And I do think the entree here, the main deal, is that nothing's gotten cheaper. For the people in Passaic County that voted for him, a lot of them thought, well, at least he's going to make sure that inflation doesn't get out of control. Well, guess what? Not so fast. So, but I got to tell you that cumulatively, the stuff he's done, and visuals are so important. I think we'll look back in history, and the visuals of him ripping the East Wing off the White House, I think was so symbolic to a lot of people, like, okay, this is going too far. This guy on his own, who does he think he is? He's tearing down our house. Nobody's approved it. Nobody knows what he's doing. Nobody knows who's paying for it. His family making all the money. I think there's a cumulative effect there. What he's doing with the people with masks on the streets,
the mass
disappearing people, including American citizens, when everybody said, well, he's just going to go after the bad guys. Well, no, not so much. So I think the cumulative DOJ, all the stuff with him prosecuting his enemies.
And his first term, and COVID, and January 6th, and the fact that he managed to pull one out over on us and get reelected.
It piles up after a while, and
nobody's saying that. Nobody is saying that. They're not giving Americans enough credit for being aware and for having a memory. Like, I think we just kind of want to go back to 2024 and go, oh man, I don't want to think about it. But we have to reflect on that. We have to, because the American people did not think he was going to be reelected, and they didn't turn out because they didn't turn out like they did tonight, because he was such a terrible candidate.
Frustration that people have, that I encounter at the grocery store. What can we do, Claire? What can we do? I mean, you guys see it, right? Everywhere you go. Well, today people could do something. They could vote. And I think unless Donald Trump turns into a different person tomorrow, I think this trend will continue, and I think you're going to see. I've talked to a lot of people tonight, and there's people like Sherrod Brown that are very happy tonight. There are people like Roy Cooper that are very happy tonight. I think the Senate, we didn't think the Senate was going to be in play next year. I think after tonight, the Senate's definitely in play.
It definitely is. It's on the on that sort of big
circle. It's on the cusp.
On that circle.
Concentric circle.
Right before they get to the batter's boxes.
Next year, Texas, I'm talking to you. You can do it next year, Texas.
I know we got to go, but I will just say to Claire's point, to me, this is why the president acts with such impunity, and he brags and he acts as though he will never meet any kind of consequences, because he has not. But tonight, he has met consequences for what he has done, and the Republicans are going to have to answer for it.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Bet.
I know it's been a long day for you,
And
Claire.
I got to be back early.
I know.
See you at 6 a.m.
Claire McCaskill, thanks for being with us tonight. We really appreciate you. Ali Velshi, stay close, baby. You don't get to go. Don't go anywhere, folks. After a quick break, we'll talk with...
To those Virginians who did not vote for me, I want you to know that my goal and my intent is to serve all Virginians. And that means that I will listen to you, I will work for you and with you.
Michael, her win is one thing, but for you, as a former lieutenant governor, what is it going to mean for her that she has a full trifecta?
It's agenda setting. I mean, look, you go in now, you've got a legislature the Senate and House that's aligned with you. Unlike Maryland, where we run as a ticket governor, lieutenant governor, in Virginia, the lieutenant governor could be the opposite party. Not a problem now, because the lieutenant governor is also a Democrat, because Lieutenant Governor-elect Hashimi won. So here we go. She can now begin to set in motion a lot of the agenda that she campaigned on, because hopefully she'll have a legislature in large measure, particularly given the wins that they got tonight. As Simone noted, swaths of Virginia legislative districts turned blue this evening. That's a good set of wins in her sail when she takes over the governorship in December.
I mean, you talk about the legislative wins. We do have Don Scott, who is the Speaker of the Virginia House of Delegates, joining us right now. Speaker Scott, thank you very much for being here. Earlier, before the polls closed in Virginia, you and I spoke, and
he's got a big smile on his face.
You said this to me. You said it doesn't benefit you to be MAGA when MAGA isn't on the ballot. You might want to be responsible. That is in response to me asking, how did you think Spanberger was going to do against Winsome Earl Sears and what this election could mean? Now that the polls have closed, you have netted how many seats in the Virginia House of Delegates? And what does this mean for Virginia, but also the country?
Come on, I'm trying to keep count. First I was using my fingers, now I'm using my fingers and my toes. We had 13 seats that we gained so far tonight. We flipped 5 Republican-held seats. We flipped the other 8 seats that Kamala Harris had won. We flipped every single targeted seat that we had targeted. We even outperformed the top of the ticket in some of those districts. That is how frustrated people are with what's happening in this country. We, at 64 seats, this is the largest Democratic majority in 3 decades. The country is pissed off. They are ready to win. They're ready to move in a different direction. And they're trying to send a message to Republicans that it's okay right now to stand up to Donald Trump. Right now, in the General Assembly, in the House of Delegates, Republicans are afraid to criticize him. They treat him like Lord Voldemort from Harry Potter, like him who must not be named. They will not even say his name. They are so intimidated and afraid of him. We have a governor and lieutenant governor and attorney general who all basically bent the knee to him. And I think now folks are realizing that the public is not with it. The people who are voting, they want a change, they want a difference, and they want people that will stand up to them. I know everybody was concerned about Jay Jones. I always knew that eventually he would pull it out, because people want someone to protect them, someone that will fight for them and not continue to do the bidding of Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump went this weekend and did that great Gatsby thing, basically spitting in the face of hardworking Virginians who he has laid off, who he has furloughed. And then he said, even if they get the government open, he wouldn't pay them back pay. I mean, so people here were upset and were ready to make their voices known and make their voices heard. And I think, you know, the thing I love about Virginia, we have a motto. It's sic semper tyrannis, thus always the tyrants. We don't like kings in Virginia. And tonight we stood up and we showed them that we would not continue to accept the direction that the country was going. We got to send the first love letter to the rest of the country. You know, Virginia's for lovers. We got to send the first love letter to the country to say we have not all lost our dang old minds and we're ready to move in a different direction.
Speaker Scott, the last time you spoke with the three of us and walked us through your redistricting plan, you told us that those maps would not be ready in time for 2026. Given the buffer that you now have in the state legislature, does that change the timeline on your redistricting maps?
But what I said was we have no maps right now, and we don't. We have a 3-step process here in Virginia. We had to pass it before this election, the constitutional amendment, which we did. We'll pass it after this election, and we will. And then we have to take it to the voters. We won't have to have maps until at that point. That's the point that we draw maps. So we don't need to have maps. We just need to get the constitutional amendment passed. And the voters tonight gave us a mandate. 64 new seats, from 51 to 64. That is a mandate. They want us to move in the direction that we're telling them, but they also want us to exercise some restraint. Don't go too far. But as I've said many times during the Trump administration of these last several months, pendulums don't creep. pendulum swing. And tonight, that pendulum swung, and it swung in the direction of Democrats. And the Democrats are back, and we're ready to fight.
Mr. Speaker, I have met a lot of speakers over my years in politics, and I have to tell you, sir, I've never seen one smile the way you're smiling tonight. And I know that comes from a place of hard work. And I know that comes from a place where a lot of folks doubted what you were able and the Democratic Party in Virginia would be able to do on the ground. Speak, if you will, for a moment about that, capturing that energy and getting that turnout, because that, you know, for me, it's a good comparative point about how narrative storylines and a vision and a mission can inspire people to actually move towards the ballot box. Talk about that on the ground effort to flip those 13 legislative seats.
Well, when we took the majority, I became minority leader in 2022. We had just won the majority in 2019 for the first time in 20 years. And then we lost it promptly in 2021. And when I became the minority leader in June of 22, I got my caucus basically said, we trust you to grow this and to reach out and come up with a plan to reach out to voters. We re-energized our infrastructure. We created some velocity in how we talk to voters across the spectrum, and we were able to win the majority in 2023 with a popular Republican governor at the top of the ticket, a very unpopular President Biden at the time. He was like 38% in Virginia. And then we took that momentum this cycle with Trump at the top of the ticket for Republicans and really just decimating people. At the end of the day, Trump lied to these folks. He told them he would lower the price of beef. He would lower the price of groceries. He would lower the price of child care and health care. And not only was he wrong about lowering those prices, everything went up. And then we began to strategize and come up with a movement and tactical strategy to recruit a candidate to run in all 100 seats. We hadn't done that in a generation. We recruited specifically people who were connected to their communities. If you look at the data tonight, every single county in Virginia moved further towards the Democratic Party than they did Republicans. We're gaining trust again. And it's our job right now to continue to grow that trust. And that's what we're to be able to do. And that's why I'm smiling.
I want to see one of those maps showing all the
where
arrows.
I'm sitting at the view and the vision that I have right now, you will be smiling too, Michael, I promise you. I'm in a good spot right now. I love my hand. I like my hand better than their hand right now.
Look, all I can say, I was in that room in 2009 and 2010, and I appreciate you, brother. I know the love you feel tonight because you put in the work. Don Scott, Speaker of the Virginia House, thank you so much for being.
You know, another thing tonight does, is it just blows away Donald Trump's whole, oh, America's back, right? The policies I've enacted, it's making us great. No, this is a response to your policies, right? This is no, we don't want what you're selling. And if you're somebody like me, like you listen to a lot of like the White House press briefings, a lot of Donald Trump's speeches, which are just the same thing over and over and over and over again. All it is, man, I'm so great. Or Carolyn Levitt going, oh, Donald Trump is so great. His policies are so great. His policies are what's making America the best country in the history of the world. Really? Really? Huh. Interesting. Why are you guys losing elections so badly? Why are millions of Americans from across the political spectrum saying, this is ridiculous. We don't want this? It just totally obliterates their one real talking point that they have, and that's that Donald Trump is just this amazing president who Americans far and wide just love and adore.
With us. Next, folks, we're heading to California, where voters have overwhelmingly approved Prop 50. What that means for the midterms. When our election night coverage continues.
We're gonna talk to California representative
congressional
here. I know
map
there's
to favor
probably,
Democrats,
it's getting to be
flipping
10
as
o'clock at
many
night.
as
We still have
5
hundreds of
House
viewers,
seats.
so
Now, this
probably
was
a lot of
Governor
us are
Gavin
West
Newsom
Coasters here,
just
so
a short time ago.
Let's watch this. I do want to check in on Fox
Instead
News,
of
though.
agonizing
I want to see
over the
how they're
state
coping.
of our nation, we organized in an unprecedented way in a 90-day sprint. People from all over the United States of America contributed their voices and their support for this initiative. We stood tall and we stood firm in response to Donald Trump's recklessness. And tonight, after poking the bear, this bear roared with an unprecedented turnout in a special election with an extraordinary result.
All day we have watched from Sacramento as Jacob Sobroff has talked with voters, the line wrapping around the block.
That's exactly right. Not only did that bear roar, it had claws. And joining us tonight right now is Democratic Congressman Robert Garcia of California.
Can I just, Congressman, obviously, Democrats are feeling good about the money that you all spent and the energy that was connected to turning out the vote. 11 million people voted in California today, and there was not a human on the ballot, as Ali Velshi said earlier.
That's exactly right. And I just want to start off by you shared of their clip, of course, of the governor. And I just got to say, this would not have been possible without Governor Newsom. He raised the resources. He worked with the delegation. He got this through the legislature. He campaigned across the state. He built a coalition not just here in California, but one that included people from across the country supporting this proposition. And so I have to again say that he is right now the model of what a Democrat in the fight is all about. And he's been a great leader on this. We all thank him immensely. And I think the country owes him also a huge thank you for the work to ensure that not only are we likely to flip these 5 seats, he's actually strengthened additional toss-up seats that will now move into the Democratic column. So a great night for California Democrats, but also a great night to win the House back in 2026.
Congressman, what are you hearing from your Republican colleagues as they watch these results roll in?
Well, you don't have to hear it. You see them already online, complaining and pointing fingers. I mean, look, they have no one to blame but the man sitting in the White House. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is the one that called the governor of Texas and said, find me 5 more seats. And so our governor did the right thing and the courageous thing and stepped up and said, if you're going to respond this way, we're going to respond with the same level of aggressiveness that meets this actual moment that we're in. And that's what we did. And so we all support here, as Democrats, we support independent commissions. And we've done so for years. But if they're going to play in a certain game, we've got to play that same game and beat them at it, which is exactly what California did, what the governor did, with people across the state. I was earlier today going to polling locations, and there were lines wrapped around the block. It'll be very interesting to see what the final numbers are, but I expect that turnout was very good for this type of special election. And I'm also hearing from communities, Latino communities, communities of color, working class communities that may have shifted a bit from us from the last election are coming back to Democrats.
You know, Congressman, our colleague Nicole Wallace was making the point earlier tonight, that what was amazing about California was that no one was on the ballot. This was an idea on the ballot. And as Ali Velshi noted a little while ago, close to, 11 million people showed up to vote for an idea. What does that say to you, sir?
Look, first, that number, the 11 million, that number will go up as all of the votes, of course, are counted across the state. We have the type of voting system here where people vote on election day, but also ballots can still continue to come in, of course. What I'll say is this, is that one thing about our state is it's huge, it's large, you have to communicate to a lot of people. And I think that the effort put in and the money raised by Governor Newsom, the congressional delegation, community leaders, people from across the country that knew this was important, phone banking. We ran a presidential level campaign in our state to ensure that we had a path to stopping Donald Trump in 2026 and to stop him from rigging the maps. And we should be clear. Anyone that lives in the state knows what the TV commercials and the digital ads were all about. This was absolutely a referendum on Donald Trump and his vision of the country. And we pushed back forcefully.
Congressman Robert Garcia of California, on a big night for your state and for this country. Thank you so much for being with us. And next, Democrats sweep state Supreme Court races in Pennsylvania. Stay with us.
All right, guys. Let's check in on Fox News and see. Let's look at the COPE here. Let's see here if I can get my. I wonder if they're even. Come on, where are you? I hardly watch Fox News. That's why it's not even. Okay, here we go. Let's listen.
Independent Andrew Cuomo.
In neighboring New Jersey, the Fox News decision desk projects that Democrat Mikey Sherrill will become the state's next governor there.
And meanwhile, Fox News also projects Democrat Abigail Spanberger will win the Virginia governor's race, flipping that seat to become the Commonwealth's first female governor.
We've got Fox team coverage tonight. Rich Edson in Virginia, Brian Yennis in New Jersey, and Alexis McAdams in New York.
Britt Hume is standing by, plus our panel right here to break it all down. Dana Perino, Shannon Bream, Harold Ford Jr., and Charlie Hurt.
Take a live look now as supporters are gathered at campaign headquarters for New York's mayoral candidates. And that is where we start with Alexis McAdams at the Mamdani HQ in Brooklyn. It's got to be getting pretty fired up there.
Brett, that's right. The music is loud. The people are here. And it's kind of like, you know, when people say the party is not going to start till later, don't show up until later on. Well, they showed up here right after the polls.
Oh, okay, it looks like
and
Trump
said that they were going to pay the.
Still seek the truth. We will still follow the story. We'll still ask. We'll still listen. The big change, the only change, is our new name.
And said that they were going to pay the funds from that rainy day fund, essentially, partial payments for SNAP. And now the president is saying he's not. Defying a court order, using people's pain as leverage, probably, or many of the reasons that voters came out in the ways they did today.
I'm just struck by the fact that he just admitted that the shutdown is the Republicans' fault. Because he just said there was one of the reasons they got slack tonight was because the shutdown. Well, there you go, Mr. President. Buy your leave. That's what you get.
I also would add to that the fact that I agree with your analysis that, yes, his name was not on the ballot, but his policies very much were. But there is a reality that Republicans are going to have to contend with, which is when he is not on the ballot, that electorate that he uniquely puts together does not come out for them. So if they are following in his steed policy-wise, they may not reap the benefits politically as they think they will.
I don't think they will. And, it does make for some interesting conversation, which is why I asked in the last hour, asked you both about the difference between 24 and 25 and the turnout and the things that kind of moved people and motivated them. Because taking that MAGA base, which is about 30% writ large when you're looking at the GOP, obviously you can play with that number depending on the state. You still had the issue of other voters, other independent voters and center-right Republican voters who did not buy into what was being offered in 2024, but then latched on to what the Democrats put on the table in 25. And that, to me, is something that I certainly want to pay a lot more attention to going into the 26 cycle, because that's what's going to have to be replicated. And I think it goes to the heart of both of your points about that messaging, that thing that touches people at their kitchen table, that touches them in their hospital bed, in their doctor's office, in their classrooms. Those things that are impacted by the government right now matter to them. And if the Democrats can continue that articulation the way they have tonight or leading up to tonight, 26 could be really interesting, I think.
I think two things. One, I I do think all of the Democrats that won tonight, and, you know, tonight, Detroit elected its first woman as mayor ever.
That's hard
in like
to believe,
324 years, there's never been a woman that was mayor of Detroit in Georgia. Democrats flipped a number of legislative seats there in Georgia. So there are some real gains that have happened. But I think that there are two things that happened. One, I think the people, a lot of people in 2024 did not actually believe what folks were saying Donald Trump was going to do. They didn't believe it was going to be that bad because I heard from a lot of people, well, we survived a Trump presidency before. You all said it was going to be bad. We've survived it before. I don't know if it's going to be that bad. It was worse. It's actually worse. People are feeling now, they're feeling the effects on every single level. The 300,000 black women that have lost their jobs who were federal government workers, the shutdown that people are currently living through, the other federal government workers that have been dozed away and lost their jobs, the literal demolition of the East Wing of the White House. I could go on what the Department of Justice is doing or not doing, the people being snatched out of their homes. People are seeing it, and it's real for them. But I also think, so for voters that are like, oh, I also think that's happened, but voters had something to vote for. The messages were crisp and clear coming from the Democratic candidates, and that matters. The people who went out to vote, they all, again, we could look at the exit polls. We've got it all. Allie Belcher's going to tell us about the numbers in a second. But the people said it wasn't just about these Democratic candidates specifically. It was about the issues, the affordability, the energy prices, and those things, I think, were very localized campaigns. And it cut to the heart of what people wanted, but they also needed to feel the pain, and they felt.
Okay, so I will say this in response to her because she makes a lot of really great points. The one thing that has me pausing when analyzing tonight is it's kind of something that I've brought up in this live stream, and I've talked about how Donald Trump and this White House, they are really terrible at orchestrating a plan. Unless it has to do like specifically with Donald Trump. And so, getting Donald Trump reelected in 2024, that was the goal, right? It was get Donald Trump in the White House and the rest will kind of fall into place. With today, there wasn't really kind of like a Republican Party / Donald Trump / MAGA strategy for today. It was kind of patchwork. It was, call Mamdani a terrorist. The Virginia governor's race, not really involved. He didn't even really campaign. In California, it was all about stepping up and standing up to Donald Trump. It wasn't really kind of, a mega movement there. I mean, there isn't really a mega movement here. And so that just gives me a little bit of pause because the Republican Party has become the cult of Donald Trump, right? And so they simply serve to protect Donald Trump. And what we saw here tonight's not going to make Donald Trump fall. Tonight is a win for Democrats, something we can celebrate, but it's not going to endanger him. I mean, Prop 50, maybe, but there's still a lot that has to happen for that to actually have an impact on the congressional race in the midterms. It is all about the midterms when it comes to Donald Trump and his ability to survive. And so that's why I think I've been reading some comments that are like, hey, let's take it easy. L.A. Davis, 1959. We can't celebrate too long. It's still just the beginning of turning the ship around. I've seen a few comments like that. And I think you're 100% right. I think we should celebrate tonight. I think it's fantastic. But you are absolutely correct. I think that we really need to be looking ahead to these midterms because they are going to come out in full force because they know that the Republican Party has tied themselves to Donald Trump. And it looks like they're sinking. So they are going to do everything they can possible to try to stay afloat. They are going to throw everything at us in these midterm elections. Hopefully, they continue to do this patchwork, plug every hole nonsense that has gotten them here today. And we will continue the blue wave and we will wash his his presidency away with impeachments and removals if we can get both the House and the Senate. But there is going to be, and then this is really my main point, there is going to be an orchestrated campaign in the midterm elections by this White House and by the Republican Party to keep Donald Trump in power. And that is going to turn out a lot of mega voters. That is going to turn out a lot of Republican voters. Will it be enough? I don't know. If you were to ask me this 6 hours ago, I would have said, I have no idea. Probably it could keep him in power. But after what happened tonight, after seeing these shellackings, I have faith. I have faith, and I have a lot of hope that we can overcome these midterm elections. But my main point is there's gonna be a very highly coordinated effort to fight in 2026.
It. Unfortunately, the 92% tried to tell y'all, but here we are. Well, where are we? Ali Velshi, where are you? Where are you? Well, take us to the big boy. Ali Velshi, what do we know?
I was riveted by this conversation because I think tonight was about agency over inevitability, right? Agency even over identity, because what you saw, this is in the big races that we saw, this is the approval or disapproval of Donald Trump's job approval ratings. Virginia, 58% disapprove. New Jersey, 55% disapprove. New York City, 71%. These are our exit polls. 71% disapprove of Donald Trump. California, 64%. And yet, New Jersey and Virginia, the gubernatorial races there were of a sort, right? They were two national security women with legislative experience dealing with, in one case in New Jersey, some very local issues. In the case of Virginia, some more national issues in terms of the federal workforce. California wasn't even a human on the ballot, and you were talking about how many people voted in that election. New York City was something entirely different. You had that energy in Zohran Mamdani that is something we haven't seen. They were not the same people. If a Martian showed up tonight and you showed them everybody who won, they wouldn't know they were of the same party. They wouldn't even know that they were of the same mission. And I think that's the takeaway tonight. You don't actually have to study. You don't have to think about what is the Democratic Party going to be or what does opposition to Trump look like. It can look like all of the above. Because people tonight, and you said that you made this point earlier, Simone, people recognized their agency and they used it the same way they did in the No Kings marches and the same way they're going to do in every special election now. And if that energy rolls over into 2026, and Michael, you made this point earlier, tonight and tomorrow in the halls of Congress and amongst Republicans, they're going to have a serious conversation with themselves about whether this is worth tying their fortunes to Donald Trump for.
Ali Velshi has been at the big board since 7 p.m. Great analysis.
God bless you, Ali.
Yes, get some rest, Ali Velshi. People will be with you on YouTube at 3 p.m. tomorrow.
That's right.
Joining us now is John Tester. He is someone that knows a little something about the United States Senate and Democrats writ large.
Okay,
He's the former Democratic senator of Montana and now an MSNBC political analyst.
Senator, it's a treat to welcome you to our table tonight on the heels of what has been
a bunch of these Republican senators who are going to have breakfast with Donald
Democrats
Trump tomorrow, so
across
this is going
the
to be a
country.
fascinating conversation.
We can say that when you look at the expanse of this election. What's your take? What's the messaging that you think the people are sending, not just to the administration, as was noted by Ali just now with some of the polling on Trump, but to the Democrats themselves that said, hey, we want to stand with you in this fight?
Yeah, well, first of all, I got to say you guys are doing a great job covering all the bases because you're covering them all. And I think, Michael, you said something a bit ago that is pretty important, and that is the president just admitted that the shutdown was one of the reasons they lost in this election. And so I look forward to the president because I think he's the big dog in this fight, ending this shutdown. Hopefully it'll happen tomorrow because I think people are tired of it. Look, the people who won, particularly the governors, just didn't win by a small margin. They kicked some butt. And I think if this doesn't send a message in the halls of Congress that says, hey, you know, there's a Constitution and we're Article 1 and we ought to be putting up some checks and balances to what the president's doing and adding a little common sense to some of these policies that are pretty crazy, then they're not picking up the vibes that I'm picking up, because I absolutely think that President Trump probably isn't going to change much of what he's doing. But if Congress doesn't step up and do their job as the Constitution has shown us they should, then I think you're going to see a repeat come around, in a year. One more thing I would say, though, and you guys have already touched on this, Democrats have to have a message that people can vote for. Just being against Donald Trump isn't going to be good enough moving forward. They need to develop a good economic message, and the tools are out there to do that, to reduce inflation, to make health care more affordable, and to make sure that working families get a fair shake and small businesses get a fair shake. I think if they do that, then good things can happen moving forward. And I think if the Republicans do some modifications and put some checks and balances in place that need to be put in place on this president, I think they can help turn the table around for them too. But as far as this election goes, it is undeniable that the policies of President Trump were flatly rejected tonight in this election.
Senator, the vibes check from Montana is exactly what it is that we were looking for. Your former colleague, Senator Claire McCaskill, was with us at the table. She suggested that tonight's results put the U.S. Senate map in play for Democrats. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. I think everything's in play. I think the key is going to be moving forward the message, because Democrats have to develop a message of what they're for going into this next election cycle. If they do that, I think they're going to have a very, very successful election cycle a year from now. And I absolutely think the Senate's in play. I think the folks that have wrapped themselves in President Trump's cloak are, in rural America, for example, tariffs are killing us. That big, beautiful bill is going to do some really bad things to rural health care. That's his base. And I can tell you that when that base starts to go and understand that the person that they put in the White House isn't really working for them, it's going to have major impacts on the Senate and the House.
Senator, it's important to remind folks that tomorrow is a major Supreme Court hearing. They will hear the case on the president's tariffs, and the president is advocating to be able to keep those tariffs in place, saying he needs that to be able to govern. And if I'm connecting the dots that you're drawing, the ruling there could be very consequential for 2026 as well. I want to talk a little bit about infrastructure here, because the people, in my opinion, the voters of this country, they're paying attention. I think we saw that tonight, that they are anxious to make their voices heard when they can. And that is important. The candidates have to have good messages and messages that connect to the people. But you also need an infrastructure to be able to communicate that message. You need money and you need funds. And I'm struck by just how much money was spent on these elections from the Democratic National Committee and their own numbers. They spent about $7 million, according to their own statements, this year between New Jersey, Virginia, and the race happening or the retention election, if you will, at the state Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. And that's just the Democratic National Committee. There's other entities that played in these races. Talk about the impact that funding can have for candidates in this upcoming midterm election.
Yeah, I think there's just too damn much money in these elections, period, on both sides. On both sides, I'm going to tell you. And I think that the quicker we can get our arms around it as American people, the less partisan the actions are going to be in Congress. And quite frankly, on the ground, too. But no, money plays a huge role in all this. And the way this election system is set up since Citizens United is we've seen unlimited funds flow into these elections. I personally believe that it is really time that we rein that back in and make all this money transparent and put some caps back on it. Montana 100 years ago had the Copper Kings that tried to buy the government, and Montana said, enough of this stuff, we're going to stop it. And they did. And I think we should take a lesson. Montana's not right all the time, but they were absolutely right on this. And we should take a lesson. And in a bipartisan way, we ought to put some limits on the amount of money that goes into these campaigns. It will help empower the voters, and it'll make them better informed when they go to the polls. I think right now they're less informed.
I think so many voters across the country are literally clapping at what you just said. They are tired of the ads, tired of the money, and they just want people that'll give it to them straight. John Tester, former United States Senator, former Montana State Senator, somebody that knows a little bit about elections. Thanks for your time tonight, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the job you're doing.
Thank you. Next up, we are going to head to New Jersey, where Democrat Mikey Sherrill defied trends to defeat a Trump-backed Republican and win the governor's race by double digits. Then we're going to go to Brooklyn, where the Mamdani campaign is celebrating his.
Right now, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer.
House Speaker Mike Johnson.
Leader Jeffries, thanks for being here with us this morning.
Leader Thune, I'm so thankful that you came and sat down with us. What's the message Democrats should focus on? Should families plan on paying more next year for health care?
Do you have fears here that the secret was it's all about the policies of the Democratic Party? I mean, like, yes and no, right? Because the primaries that the Democratic Party is going to undergo, that's going to get the Democratic Party to their policies, right? But the candidate is really gonna be the one who pushes us past the finish line in the next presidential election.
We've chosen liberty, the very foundation of democracy, and we've chosen prosperity necessary to create opportunity for all. So, New Jersey, to quote the boss, the future is now. Roll up your sleeves, let your passion flow. The country we carry in our hearts is waiting. Thank you, New Jersey.
With us now, Vaughn Hilliard, MSNBC senior White House reporter. He's at Mikey Sherrill's headquarters in New East Brunswick, New Jersey, and from the Mamdani camp headquarters in Brooklyn, New York, is MSNBC's correspondent and co-host of The Weekend Primetime, Antonia Hilton.
Antonia, it's our understanding that the party is clearing out where you are a little bit. Talk to us about what you heard at this victory party tonight. And I was very struck by the interview you did earlier with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She talked about Democrats needing to understand this moment and what it takes to, as she, in her words, fight fascism. And I'm wondering if you heard that echoed from anyone else there tonight.
Oh, Simone, absolutely. It is closing time, but I'll tell you, we can still hear in some corners of the venue that the party for some is still going on, especially campaign staffers, the young people who really powered the Mamdani movement here in the city. Some of them are taking their time clearing out of this building. But look, that message that you heard from AOC earlier has absolutely been echoed, not just by, the supporters, the campaign workers who were here to be part of the celebration tonight, but as I visited different polling locations throughout Brooklyn today, I spoke to voters who were young, some of the young men, for example, who this campaign really reached, touched, energized in ways that we just haven't seen in past election cycles. I mean, able to reach some voters who were not energized just in the past presidential election. And then all the way up to elders who maybe had only become more familiar with Mamdani in just the last couple months after the primary. I've spoken to people, for example, who had supported Cuomo because who was familiar, known to them just a few months ago in the summer, and who then made a switch here in November because they were inspired by his focus on affordability, but also really believed that you needed this sort of outside figure to put up an intense fight against Donald Trump. They know that Trump is planning to threaten funds here in New York. They know that there are going to be more ICE agents on the streets in communities here, like what we saw just days ago on Canal Street. But they've also become so disaffected with certain establishment Democratic figures who they feel hadn't put up enough of a fight until this point of the government shutdown, until they found a figure like Mamdani. And so what we've kept hearing tonight is that they really put their faith in this 34-year-old who's making history in so many ways. raise, an incredibly young mayor, the first Muslim and South Asian mayor, so many people in the city seeing themselves in him and in his story who had previously felt like they were outside of the Democratic.
Real quick, just to add to that, you know, for any young people who are watching, Mamdani in his acceptance speech tonight, in his victory speech, he talked about a 15-day hunger strike that he and another person went on. So if you are a young person and you have some aspirations to make a big impact on this world or in your community or in your city or in your state, know that actions speak louder than words. And I think that's something that I think we can all take away from Mamdani's victory tonight.
Party, or maybe not appreciated by it, even if they were members and voters within the party. And all of that positivity, that energy, they believe is really how you oppose and how you take down authoritarianism, Simone.
And Tony Hilton, I am just loving that visual behind you because it is such a reminder of the way in which the pageantry of the campaign is over and that cold plunge into governing will begin. Friend, we're going to say goodbye before you get kicked out of the venue. Thank you for all of your reporting today and tonight. Vaughn Hilliard, I'm sure you had the same experience I did where when you would talk to the Sherrill campaign, they would say, don't pay attention to a lot of these polls. We are not only going to win, we're going to win by big numbers. They had a sense in the final days here that she was going to close strong. What were they seeing that others were not?
Right. And what they were saying was that there was no evidence of any of the headlines or the idea around some of the scrutiny questioning the energy and the enthusiasm and the desire to vote for Mikey Sherrill here in this governor's race, making the case that in that competitive six-person primary over the summer, she won by 13 percentage points. And, you know, despite sort of that contrast that was so easily painted with Zohran Mamdani and the type of campaign that he was running literally just miles away across the Hudson River over in New York, Mikey Sherrill was running her own campaign. And every time that she mentioned Donald Trump, the campaign insisted she ensured that she tied it directly to an economic or affordability message. And frankly, you know, there were two storylines that I was looking at as these results came in. And that was, number one, sort of what ability did she have to be able to juice turnout closer there to the New York border in places like Newark, the biggest city in New Jersey, in Essex County. And if you compare the results right now, she has a 55% advantage over Jack Ciccitelli. At this point, if you compare that to 1 year ago, Kamala Harris won it by 45 percentage points, so she's gained 10%. And then if you look at some of these other counties, including where we were just earlier this evening at a polling location in Middlesex County, where over the course of the last 10 years, you have seen this shift rightward, you know, by 11 percentage points in the direction of the Republican Party. And what did she do tonight? She completely turned it on its head. And right now in Middlesex County is up by 25 percentage points after Kamala Harris won it by 8 percentage points. And by my math, that is the largest margin of would-be victory for any Democrat running for president or governor in the state of New Jersey here in the 21st century. And that was sort of that question of, could she kind of stifle Republicans' rightward movement in what is the second biggest county in New Jersey? And I think in a large part, I'll leave you with one anecdote, was I was at the polling location there in Highland Park in Middlesex County tonight, waiting to see who the last voter was that was going to show up tonight at the polling location. And here came, you know, speed walking down the sidewalk just 3 minutes before the doors locked was this woman, Carolina Matos, along with her 16-year-old son, who didn't get to vote, but after they walked out of the polling location, she was still breathing heavy, and she told me that she came out to vote because, she goes, so many others in her community don't have the ability to. And she has watched the impact of deportations and the ICE efforts from the Trump administration on her own community. She said that it was incumbent upon her in a text message with friends who were urging her to make sure that she got there before the 8 p.m. poll closing tonight. And so she is somebody who voted for the first time 1 year ago, and tonight was her second time in voting for Mikey Sherrill. And when you look at sort of the boost in the difference from just 1 year ago when Kamala Harris won the state by 6 percentage points, you see where those voters and the impact that the Trump administration's policies have had in galvanizing people here in New Jersey to come and get out. I'll leave you with the fact that right now it's looking like there were 500,000 more voters that came out to vote in New Jersey tonight compared to 2021. It is very clear here that there was engagement at a time where for the last couple weeks there was scrutiny and question over whether that sort of turnout would actually ultimately come to fruition.
Vaughn, so telling that you and I were in very different parts of the state and still had the same experience with voters. I'm going to bid you adieu so you can make your way back up the New Jersey Turnpike. Vaughn Hilliard, as always, thank you so much, my friend. We're going to continue this special coverage and our conversation on New York and New Jersey after a very quick break, so stick around.
You got Earl Sears. Rich Edson is at the Earl Sears headquarters, dying down, I think, or maybe totally died down in Leesburg, Virginia. Rich?
Good evening, Brett and Martha. That's right. It's at that point in a campaign where they have stopped the music and they're cleaning up the ballroom. All has wrapped up for Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl Sears, who gave her concession speech about 45 minutes, an hour ago. She says she called the governor-elect, Abigail Spanberger, to concede the race. Didn't connect with her. She left a voice message in which she said that she offered to help her and that she hoped that she would lead a state for all Virginians. Abigail Spanberger, her watch party down in Richmond, Virginia, she said that she wanted to thank her opponent, Winsome Earl Sears, for a hard-fought race, and that Lieutenant Governor's story, her military service, and her years of service to the Commonwealth of Virginia, they deserve our respect and our gratitude. So nice words from the two candidates who had a pretty tough campaign against one another here. There was an outstanding race. Fox News called this particular governor's race pretty early, less than an hour after the polls had closed in Virginia, but it was still unclear as to whether Jay Jones, the Democrat running for Attorney General, was going to win his race. And remember, he sent those pretty violent text messages back in 2022. News of them only emerged last month. Democrats were caught in a position where they had to say, or they did say, we condemn the texts, but we'll send it back to you.
All right, Rich, thank you.
So let's go to Sandra Smith, who has more insight from our Fox News voter poll, which has a lot of interesting information in it about the dynamic that produced this outcome tonight, Sandra.
Hey, Martha. Hey, Brett. Two big stories that developed throughout the evening. And what we were looking for heading into tonight was whether or not we would see those ticket splitters in Virginia. And turns out there were some. It wasn't enough. But you can see of those who voted for Spanberger in this race, 1 in 10 did split their ticket and vote for the Republican Jason Mieres. 9% of them did, but 86% still voted along party lines for Jay Jones in that race. Also, the gender gap story, it is a huge one, both in Virginia and New Jersey. I mean, this is the largest gender gap we've seen in recent history. So the female vote in this race for Spanberger really put her over the edge. I mean, you're looking at a gap of about 24 points there. When I show you that Winsome Earl Sears did win the male vote by about 6 points, I mean, you put it together, and that's a
claims that the president not being on the ballot and the shutdown were the two reasons that Republicans lost elections tonight, while also reiterating his demands once again that Senate Republicans terminate the filibuster. It all comes amid an election night dominated by familiar countdown clocks. But this clock is ticking up to a level that we have never seen in American history. The government shutdown is officially breaking records for the longest shutdown ever, entering its 36th day and counting, a shutdown that is clearly on the president's mind tonight. The panel is back with me. Can I just say that Trump might be correct?
On the shut? Oh,
that, that he was not on the ballot. And the shutdown, and I'm not sure that he thinks that that's, like, it's not what he thinks it is. I think the fact that he was not on the ballot and that voters are blaming Republicans for the shutdown is bad news for Republicans.
It definitely made a difference in Virginia. 5.6% of the residents there are federal workers. You got to account for the thousands who were probably fired. If you're a contractor, you're furloughed, you're not going to get back pay. You think about SNAP benefits, the government being shut down. I mean, those are going to have real implications. And if you're voting, you're thinking about that
Yeah.
stuff in real time
That's
when
right.
you're going to the voting booth. So I think the president's correct.
Yeah, and sure, Michael, we're going to fix your mic while I get Scott Jennings on the record on this.
Yeah.
Look, I hear the point about Democrats just need to come to the table, all of that, right? But if voters are not blaming them, and they are blaming Republicans, that seems like a practical political problem for Republicans. How are Republicans going to use leverage in their fight with Democrats when the Democrats are actually the ones with the upper hand in the eyes of voters?
Oh, I'm sure Democrats will be more than happy to open the government now. The election's over. I mean, part of the reason they shut it down was to get through tonight.
I mean,
I would suspect they'll be.
Are you an idiot, man? Because what they're doing is working.
I just
They'd
talked
open
to
it up by the end of the week.
Adam Schiff. He was like,
As
hold the
Jennings
line.
does.
There's lots of rumors
AOC,
of
she said,
people
hold
wanting
the
to open
line.
it.
Look, I don't see what is the
Complete clown.
incentive for Democrats to back down when voters are basically saying Trump's not doing enough. It's the Republicans' fault, and then they basically handed the keys in this past election to the Democrats. Where's the leverage?
Again, these are blue states electing Democrats, not a shock. Democrats clearly wanted this shutdown to get through Election Day. I do think they are facing pressure from their internal coalitions. The unions, the air traffic controllers, the government employee unions are desperate to get the government back open. They're feeling a little bit of internal heat. But again, the election's now over. I'm sure tomorrow morning phones will start ringing and it'll be open soon enough. This was a political shutdown, and that's what they did, and now we're through the election day.
I think the Democrats' hand was strengthened tonight by the results, and Trump clearly thinks so too, apparently. But especially given the electoral success Democrats had, but also the fact that the elections really turned on this question about costs, the economy, prices, and so the argument that Democrats are making about healthcare, they've only been bolstered in their argument by the results tonight. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, there are real practical impacts of a shutdown on people across the country, and so Democrats and Republicans on the Hill are grappling with that. Eventually, at some point, the shutdown will come to an end. But I don't think that the election results tonight weakened the Democrats' hand here at all, actually.
Eric Erickson says on X tonight, lame duck status is going to come even faster now. Trump cannot turn out the vote unless he is on the ballot, and that is never happening again, at least if the Constitution has a say.
I mean, I definitely think if Donald Trump played by traditional political rules, all the signs are negative, right? Like, I think the through line, as folks have said about cost of living, and I think his own actions on tariffs, even on immigration, we've seen a kind of public opinion shift.
Yeah.
The recourse for Donald Trump is that he's not playing by these rules. He is trying to expand executive power to make Congress semi-irrelevant. He is trying to execute his agenda through kind of a use of federal authority in a different type of way. And so I guess, in my sense, the evidence that they received this evening is not going to slow them down from their attempts to kind of reshape the kind of fullness of their agenda, even if that means they lose some seats in the midterm.
Laura Hammond Davis
The redistricting fight is
with
very
the super
important.
chat.
It
It does provide an escape hatch from some of the electoral blowback.
I mean, he wants the filibuster to go away because he wants, as he's explained it on X, he basically wants the next year or so, maybe it'll be even less than that, maybe call it 8 months, for them to really just ram through everything they can possibly do. But looking at the polls, looking at the results tonight, that feels like something that the voters would respond to incredibly negatively and could mean even more disaster for Republicans going into the next midterm election.
I don't think, and Scott, I don't know what you think about this, and I'm curious because I've talked to folks on the Hill, and from my understanding, a lot of Republican senators aren't open to this idea because there's legitimate concerns about what happens when Democrats take control again and things are in the reverse. And then, again, you're also thinking about the political backlash. There's a number of Republican seats up for grabs in the Senate. I mean, there are a number of things that folks are assessing on our side to say, hey, Mr. President, we get it, but let us try to figure this out in a different way.
But it says something about how Trump sees politics, that he wants that not because it's good for his party, but because it's good for him. And that's the biggest problem for Republicans going forward, is that he doesn't really care That's right. How Republicans do in the midterms. He's like, I just want to get my agenda done.
And I don't.
I mean, that's effectively what he is saying.
He cares about more oversight. He's worried about the oversight. Yes. He's worried about not getting his agenda. He does not care about the seats.
His presidency will grind to a halt. They will impeach him. He knows the wages of having Democrats run Congress when you're the president. So I disagree. I think he deeply cares about it because he knows if Democrats win next November, either chamber, it comes to an end. I think they're doing everything they can do to win.
But he cares about for personal purposes.
Yeah, I think he cares about the midterms.
Doesn't every president? I mean, every president
they care about their
whether
party.
the presidency
They care about their party.
He cares about the midterms. I would, to your point, I think he probably does not care about the post-Trump Republican Party. I think he cares intensely about the midterms, but I think the long-term, the impact that getting rid of the filibuster would have long-term on the Republican Party, I think Donald Trump's probably like, not my problem.
Well, and also just to what you said about how Republicans don't want this, Republicans also didn't want redistricting. They didn't want to open up in Texas and elsewhere this whole everything that we're seeing, which is a race to the bottom on redistricting. And they privately, what I've heard from people, is pushed back on the White House. But that's what Trump wanted, so they had to go through with it. So I am not sure that Republicans will push back on Trump's calls to end the filibuster. I mean, that just seems like if the president wants it, well, will he? Will they? But I'm not sure this Republican Party will do it.
I do think this might be the one thing that he's not going to get from them, and that's not saying much. But I do think that, first of all, I don't know that Trump really understands the consequences as well as others do. I mean, even Mike Johnson opposes getting rid of the filibuster, and he's been willing to do virtually everything that Trump wants him to do. So it might stop there, but we shall see. Everyone stand by. The battle at the polls was today, but in just a few hours from now, we'll see a battle at the Supreme Court as Trump's tariffs face their biggest test yet. That's next.
Yeah. Agolf hit. Almost fell for it. A golf.
Do you think you can probably lead a golf?
Would you like to tell me why you don't?
No, you were. Yeah, there it is. Okay. Democrats flipped 13 seats in the Virginia House, flipped the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general seats too. An absolute blowout. Democrats flipping 14 percentage point red seats to blue, or 14 red seats to blue. Look, I think that's a great comment, and that's something that we should all like highlight and put in our memories for tonight, because what Donald Trump and what Republicans are going to try to do tomorrow and try to do over the next year is they're going to try to downplay this enormous victory tonight. They're going to go, it was like what Scott Jennings said there. It was a bunch of Democratic states voting for Democrats. Oh, but who was holding those offices? Oh, whoops. Right. So just remember that Virginia House statistic, that alone tonight is massive. Anytime a Republican tries to tell you last night wasn't that big of a deal, you just bring up the Virginia House and see
I can
what their
finally be
response
brave.
is.
You look at people like Gavin Newsom, who's like showing Democrats how they can use every tool at their disposal to fight back. That's a different posture than the old Democratic Party you knew.
It is a very different posture, and I think people are seeing the lessons in real time. I guess for me, I think tonight was a culmination of many different races that we have seen throughout the course of this year, because there have been a lot of special elections. And in every single special election that has been run since 2024, Democrats have either won or exceeded expectations. In Florida, remember, they made all those gains in the special election. They didn't win in Florida, but a county that was 10 plus Republican for Trump, Democrats cut into that. They flipped seats in the state legislature in Pennsylvania. There's a Democratic mayor of Omaha, Nebraska, who unseated a 3-term Republican incumbent. And so tonight, I think it's a continuation of the story that was already unfolding, and now we have much larger data sets. I also think, though, that there are warning signs. And speaking to people in the difference, I think the big difference between New Jersey and Virginia is that the Virginia didn't necessarily struggle with the investments that the New Jersey operation struggled with for a number of reasons. I heard from folks, one, because Mikey Sherrill, she had never had to run statewide before. So the donors didn't know her. So there, she kind of struggled to raise money at first. But also, that the money that was raised, it didn't necessarily go all the places where it might go initially. But there were deep investments. More than more than $500,000 was invested in August in African-American turnout. And that infrastructure, that money made a difference to the organizers to be able to do their jobs and deliver some record turnout numbers.
Sorry, Chairman. I was going to say, I'm not just saying this to suck up to you, but being a party chair is like the hardest job in the world. It is thankless.
Thank you.
And the points that you were just making, Simone, right? The DNC staff and the chairman deserve some credit here, right?
Yeah.
You know, people have been complaining about Ken Martin and the DNC for months now, but the investments you just talked about were conscious decisions made by party leadership. He has made record investments in state parties, all 50 states, including a red state fund that is funding places for Democrats to build out their bench. And on top of that, like, you know, he showed up in all of these states. He's been to 33 states, I think, in the last, 6 months. So, like, that kind of leadership from a party chairman really matters and is making a difference.
We have Ken Martin tomorrow.
Well,
Tune in.
This
early preview.
Tune in. Thank you. I was going to say to Simone's point, and thank you, John, for
Always got
complimenting him anytime you want.
Rightfully
so.
Let me get the King's fan out.
Tonight's a little bit reflective for me too, because 2009, I was where Ken Martin is, and no one believed what I could do then and what Ken could do tonight. A lot of noise, a lot of complaints, but when you put your nose to the grindstone, it's an old term, Simone, and you pay attention to the mission, you can accomplish not just the mission, but stuff you didn't even plan to do right then.
That's right.
I mean, because some of the benefits that we saw a year later were born out of what happened in 2009. And what Democrats, I hope, and this is the question point to you, sir, the Democrats, I hope, understand that the benefits that they're going to realize next year began tonight. Very much to your point. The investments that were made that nobody saw or everybody complained about, wasn't enough, came too late. Well, you got something. Shut the hell up and go get out that vote.
And then just
Put
really,
it on the bumper sticker.
and then just really quickly to John's point, Ken was the head of the ASDC. He knows how to run state parties. He helped state parties. I helped him get elected when he got that seat. And so we understood the importance of generating that infrastructure financially, politically from the ground up. That's what parties are supposed to be able to do. And when they don't, when they failed, you can't get people elected. It breaks that way. But going back to also your earlier question, what we're going to see now is how the rest of the establishment moves based on what happened today.
There you go.
Well,
including that's when it gets interesting.
The governor of New York, who's running for re-election next year.
All right, we'll be watching it. Basil Schmeichel, thank you. John McCarthy, thank you both for staying up late with us.
Increase prices in the short term, and even in the long term, which of course Trump has made the argument, it may hurt you in the short term, but in the long term will help you out. But look at this. The majority, 51% of Americans believe that, in fact, new tariffs will increase prices in the long term, compared to just 23% who say decrease. No wonder Trump is losing the tariff argument, Abby.
And where does he stand on this issue compared to some of the other key issues that voters care about?
Yeah, okay, so why don't we just look at Trump's net approval rating on the different issues? And I think this sort of gives the game away, right? Trump's net approval rating. We have a list of issues for you here. It's a lot of text, but it's crime, immigration, foreign policy, the economy, trade and tariffs. Look at what rates at the bottom here. A negative 18-point net approval rating for Donald Trump on trade and tariffs. When you combine that with the negative 16-point rating that he has in the economy, which, of course, was a big issue in the off-year elections this past evening, in New York, in New Jersey, in Virginia. You combine these two, all of a sudden Americans feel like Trump is not adding money to their pocketbooks. He's taking it out. Tariffs, not a winning issue for Donald Trump. We'll see if it's a winning issue for him at the Supreme Court, but I know which way Americans hope the Supreme Court rules, Abby.
All right, Harry, thank you very much. My panel is back with me. Donald Trump, once again, being the 2x4 president, where rather than just doing the thing in a moderate way, he just takes a 2x4 and just smacks everyone over the head with it. And that's kind of what's happening with tariffs. And putting aside, the Supreme Court's going to rule how they rule, but Americans have decided. They think this is bad for them. And Trump is not backing down, frankly.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue is, if you look at the approval that Harry was just talking about, sort of flipping from when Trump took office. part of the reality of that is Trump was not describing tariffs accurately, right? Like it was always the companies are going to pay, we're going to make money off of this, and it was a hypothetical. People weren't feeling it. Well, fast forward, now people are feeling it, and so his inaccurate description of it doesn't land. It's that mismatch that's the same problem he has on the economy writ large, which we've talked about, which Biden had as well. That if you go out and tell people that, the economy is humming and they're not feeling it, it's not going to land. And so there's a mismatch on how he's talking about tariffs, and it's dragging him down.
He also discounts the degree to which these days in this economy, everybody is a little bit of a mom and pop seller. People are on Etsy. They are engaging in commerce in ways that will make them be affected by tariffs. And I don't think Trump takes that into consideration either.
Let me tell you something.
That's a good point.
All this polling, all this punditry, he does not care. I have talked to him about this
I'm
this year.
aware. Trust me, I'm also aware that he does not understand how tariffs work.
I was just pulling up the transcript. I asked him right after it was the appeals court ruling happened. I said, "What do you?"
That's the whole point. Donald Trump wants total control of the American economy. He wants to get to be able to pick and choose the winners and losers, and he wants everyone to depend on him. He wants everyone to have to bow down to him. And that's why he's using tariffs. Whether or not it makes any sense, whether or not it impacts small businesses that Republicans used to be the party of, he doesn't care. And for Jennings to somehow pretend like that's a great point to make just goes to show you how bad of an idea it is. When even your political analysts who have all the talking points can't defend it.
Prepared to do if this doesn't go your way. He said, I'm not even going to be thinking about that. He said, if it'll be a disaster if we lose for our country will be weak, pathetic, and not rich. And then he attributed the peace deals that he has negotiated to tariffs. It is his longest held and most deeply held view that tariffs are not just an economic matter, but they are a tool of the presidency to achieve national security and national diplomacy. So we'll see what happens at the court. I'm just telling you, my view is the polling he doesn't care about. He thinks it's working. The government has made money off of it, by the way. We have taken in a lot of revenue, but he will be apoplectic if this thing does not go his way.
But Americans aren't feeling what he said would be gains, to Kate's point. And I think that it's clear because now we're looking forward to the next year. We're looking forward to how Democrats are going to message the next year, and we know they're going to message it on cost of living and how we need to bring down prices and how Donald Trump hasn't done that. He wants to message on, not the economy, because you just saw those numbers that right there, he's doing terrible on the economy. He wants to message on crime and immigration. The problem here is Americans are clear what they want. They were clear tonight. They were clear 2024. Donald Trump's not giving that. He wants to go with crime and immigration. Let me tell you, when it comes to immigration, the exit polling from CNN shows in Virginia that when it came to immigration, Spamberger won more than 9 in 10 of people that cared about immigration, and half the electorate in Virginia cared about immigration.
Yep.
She also won independence.
And so this is the second comment I've seen by these MAGA members. Marine 1111P5X, which sounds like a bot, says blue states elected Democrats. What a shocker. What did I just talk about 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago? Hey, Marine, if you're a real person, go and look what happened to the Virginia State House. Go and look at the people who held the seats that were elected by Democrats. Go and look who they unseated. Come back here, and then you can comment and tell us that you're not a bot.
Donald Trump believes that he can win right now. He is not doing as well as he did in the 2024 election. And I think that'll be very telling in seeing what happens in the midterms.
Donald Trump succeeded in his diagnoses of problems that the American people agree with, mainly being the economy. But even at the time, when he was saying how much he loved tariffs from the stage, I remember asking people after, well, what do you think about the whole tariffs thing? And they would just kind of wish it away. There was never agreement about the solutions. And I think we're seeing that kind of disconnect as we continue to go right now. But there's been a shift on several issues that I think add up to an American electorate that is increasingly not feeling the Trump sequel. And so he came in with a clear, I think there was a legitimate mandate about prices, about the economy. I think he has put the American people into his own ideological project, a vision about how he wants to change kind of country, culture broadly. That is not why he was elected, but that is his firm belief, which is, I think, what Scott is talking about. Whether he cares or not, he's going to go for it.
What I like to remind people is that he's been talking about this very much for decades. In the 80s, he was complaining that Japan was cleaning our clocks in trade. And guess what? He was wrong. Japan was not cleaning our clocks. We were cleaning their clocks. We are doing a better as an economy, even in light of globalization. And so Trump has had this deeply held belief, but fundamentally, it is not accurate. He diagnoses the problem of what is going on in terms of, towns that have lost manufacturing, but his solution is not correct. And history and economics has shown that. So now the Supreme Court's going to have to decide whether this statute, which literally says that Congress has the power to tariff, allows him to tariff the entire world at insane levels. Yeah, it might ruin his day, but I think it also is going to address a really important constitutional line that Congress just doesn't even bother to address.
Look, I think you're right about the pronouncements of the president. I think you're also right that there was a mandate to address costs. I would advise the president to be more surgical. I agree with him on the focus being China. I think the best way to address that would be to build coalitions with some of our allies. I think the president is 100% correct on his focus about the refinement of rare earth minerals. We need to lessen the reliance on China. I believe 70% is exported from the Chinese, I believe. That's just not good national security strategy for us or any of our friends in the West. And so I think we can accomplish what the president wants to accomplish while still being targeted and addressing cost and the cost of living for everyday people by just being more surgical. And that's the best advice that I would give the president on this. We can still move forward with this, but let's do this in a very different operational way.
Did he say he should be more surgical? As if surgical can be used to describe anything Donald Trump or this
is the same
Republican
blowback
Party
on
is doing.
immigration, by the way. I think the electorate response is that it has not been surgical. And I think the administration has done that on purpose.
It's not just violent criminals.
Yeah, and so I'm saying it's at odds with their kind of performative nature.
That's sort of like this ideological project that other people like Stephen Miller have
That's what I'm saying.
about changing the way that we even view immigration in this country. And I think Trump shares a lot of that, but it's clearly being operationalized by other people in the administration. Thank you, everyone. Great conversation over the last couple of hours. Thank you very much for watching. Alex Michelson is going to pick up our night of coverage right after this.
We live for the moment.
Obviously, I would say that this is kind of a dog bites man kind of story. We could have predicted most of this 6 months ago. Democrats massively outspent Republicans in these races. And the other thing that I think is kind of interesting is I wonder in New Jersey and New York how much of the results are partly a result of the mass exodus of voters that we've already seen to places like Florida.
Shannon.
So I switched to Fox News, and they are doing everything they can to avoid analyzing it in the proper context. And that is that this is a response to Donald Trump's failed economic policies, his violence against immigrants, his authoritarian ways. It's voters moved to Florida out of Virginia. I mean, are you effing kidding me? These losers, these clowns.
So there are two deep dive studies that came out for Democrats in the last few days, one from the Welcome Group, one from Democracy Matters. The vast majority of people said that they thought Democrats were out of touch, talking too much about climate change, LGBTQ rights, those kinds of things. They wanted to hear more about the border, crime, and economy. Spanberger and Sherrill did that, and maybe they're the prototype for Democrats moving forward. But they're going to be in contrast to Mamdani, where the party will have to decide in 26 and 28 if he speaks for them.
And they'll have to get results, Dana.
Yes, I think that's also the other thing for Mamdani, right? So if he becomes mayor and is incompetent, then democratic socialism doesn't look so good. Comes in, doesn't do as much as people think he might do, and it kind of goes okay. You will see much more across the nation. There were other elections tonight, including in Minnesota and Minneapolis and in Seattle. And both of those people, right, if they won, and I'm assuming that they did, given the way things are going, this is coming to a city near all of you.
Yes. Harold.
Politics is super.
Okay, and what about the alternative? What if Mamdani gets in and gives New Yorkers childcare? What if he gets in and gives New Yorkers faster and free buses? Oh my God. Oh my God. What if he gets in and he keeps rents from going through the roof? Oh my God. Do you really want that to come to your city? Oh.
Fluid. It's dynamic. 4 years ago, people in Virginia voted for a Republican for governor. The message tonight is politicians got to listen to people. You got to listen to voters, respond to voters. There's nothing inevitable because President Trump is president, meaning Republicans are going to win. It has to be earned, and voters are willing to vote for change. That's the message tonight. Democrats, listen to this panel. Respond to people. If you don't, 2 years from now, we may be having a different conversation.
I'm going to be talking to President Trump tomorrow in Miami. He's going to give a speech at an economic forum in Miami. I'll have an interview outside of that on Special Report. We'll see what comes out of that. Thank you for joining us for Democracy 25. Special coverage of this election night. Polls in California close in just seconds.
Thanks to our panel. Thanks to Britt Hume. And thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. Great to have you with us. Our continuing coverage continues right now with Trace Gallagher, who joins us next.
Looks like CNN is.
Yeah, that's right. Major wins for the Democratic Party in a year of contentious battles with the White House and now the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. A common theme among the Democratic candidates in these races was countering President Trump's agenda. President Trump is already downplaying the Republican losses, posting online that he blamed the government shutdown and the fact that he wasn't on the ballots as reasons why Democratic swept those races.
And let's break down some of those big wins. CNN projects Democrat Zohran Mamdani will win New York City's mayoral election, beating former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who did run as an independent. New York's Board of Elections says more than 2 million people voted in that election, the most since 1969.
So
the Democratic Socialist mayor-elect is wasting no time sending a message to President Trump.
Let me know where you're watching from, if you have any reflections that you want to share.
Since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up. New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants. And as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all of us.
CNN also projects Mikey Sherrill will win the New Jersey governor's race, making her the first female Democratic governor in the state's history. Sherrill campaigned heavily against President Trump and his policies, often comparing him to her Republican opponent. And in a nod to the recent No Kings protests across the U.S., she said New Jersey would never bow to anyone.
Jersey, we know that this nation has not ever been, nor will it ever be, ruled by kings. We take oaths to a constitution, not a king.
Nice. Texas,
We've
nice.
chosen
Vegas,
liberty,
nice.
the very foundation of democracy,
I kind of
and
assumed
we've
it'd be like a
chosen
lot of like
prosperity
Midwest, West Coasters.
necessary to create opportunity for all.
Nashville, you're staying up late.
And Democrat Abigail Spanberger has flipped the top office in Virginia from Republican leadership. CNN projects Spanberger will become Virginia's first female governor. She is a 46-year-old mother of three
Front
who
range of the
served in law
Rockies.
enforcement and the
What's up,
CIA
Peter?
before winning a seat in Congress. Spanberger is vowing to serve all Virginians, even those who voted for her opponent, Republican Winsome Earl Sears. Her campaign was focused on affordability and the impact of federal job cuts, as well as the government shutdown.
Tonight we turned a page. We turned that page by listening to our neighbors, focusing on practical results, laying out a clear agenda, and leading with decency and determination. To those who have been impacted by the mass layoffs, by furloughs, by the hardships that you are experiencing, please know that I will direct the full power of the governor's office to support you.
And right here in California, CNN projects that California voters will approve Governor Gavin Newsom's push to redraw the state's
Cool, guys.
congressional
All right.
maps.
Well, this was
Proposition
a lot of
50
fun.
is in
What a
response to
fantastic
Texas
night.
Republicans redrawing their map
So
to help
much,
Republicans.
has gone in.
This will allow
to
congressional
this,
lines drawn by California's
over the last 10
independent
months.
commission to
And
be
I will
replaced
say,
with new
we
ones
needed a night
that
like
make
tonight.
5 U.S.
We
House
needed
seats
one
more favorable
so-
for Democrats.
So badly.
Here's California Governor
And
Gavin
I'm
Newsom
thrilled- I'm
speaking
thrilled
behind
that,
us a short time
I
ago.
got to spend the evening with you
we
guys.
stood tall and we
a lot of you are
stood
new
firm
viewers of the channel,
in response
so thank you
to
for tuning
Donald
in. I'm
Trump's
so,
recklessness.
glad that you found Reflect Politics, and thanks for sticking around. L.A. Davis, thank you for your super chat. Really appreciate that, and thank you everyone for all your comments and for all your interactions. Tomorrow is going to be quite the day as we see the fallout from tonight's elections, and we start to see how Republicans and how Donald Trump are going to respond, and the back and forth between Republicans and Democrats as we try to move forward with a new day in American politics after Democrats win big in the 2025 special election. Thank you all for watching. If you don't know, my name is Brendan Plank with Reflect Politics. I will see you in the next stream.